Greetings, brothers and sisters. So, Trump answered some questions about this, and he had that guy, Mike Waltz, with him. No relation to Gwen Waltz, the incredible entrepreneur, Gwen Waltz. Um, and, with Trump and this administration, it's always worse than you think. Like, you kind of know what they're going to do because Trump has been doing the same thing over and over again. Blaming the fake news, blaming Joe Biden, talking about how great he is and how great his people are, how they're the best and Joe Biden is the worst, and all these things. He's been doing this for a while. This is what Trump does, and it's always predictable. It's a pattern, but somehow he's always worse than I thought. He's always lower, more amateurish, immature and amateur, and so he holds this press conference and never taking responsibility, never any failure, and always, having excuses and all this stuff. Like, it's the worst kind of stuff as you're a politician or president. And there's things you're just supposed to come out and someone's got to eat it. Like, someone's just got to eat the whole fucking thing. It's just a big pile of shit that they got to eat. You have somebody fall on their sword. Sometimes it's even the president. But someone's got to eat this fucking thing. But, we'll see what the Republican people do. Fox News is certainly not. I mean, this is what CNN did with Joe Biden. They just wouldn't admit and say this guy's senile. And so, it's not just the right, obviously, because they did the same thing. Any kind of failure, Joe Biden stumbling around on stage. I mean, he had dementia. If you're refusing to acknowledge what everyone else can see. And so, which, Trump started, who's to say, like, this has gone back and forth in terms of division in the country, but just absolutely lying at the face of total failure. And zero responsibility and accountability. Trump is worse at it because he's just worse in terms of his, his big performances and his rhetoric and his bullshit. But, they're both really bad, both sides. And so, I want to show you the Trump thing, and then just there's a whole bunch of stuff to get to here. Fox News, it's all right there. But, you can easily just say we screwed up and someone's got to be the fall guy. Somebody has got to be held accountable. They're also blaming using the app, the Signal app, because of Joe Biden. His people used it before. It was preloaded, they said, and they like that. It was their fault they invited. It's like mind-boggling that a liberal, like one of the worst reporters for them, a guy I never heard of before. I don't really, the Atlantic isn't something I look at. Occasionally it comes up. And sometimes their stuff isn't liberal or democratic, but I have no really reference point for that magazine or that, whatever that is, or the guy. But to them, it's like one of the worst people. And during the press conference, we'll get into it. We'll show you the part where he makes it to Caitlin Collins, right? And I'll show you this first video clip if I can find it, where he's like, he says, I didn't call on you. But he goes to all the people they now have that are Trump plants, and they don't ask about this scandal, right? So he has like 6 or 8 questions, not about the scandal. And then he goes to Caitlin Collins, and she asks a question, which you'll see. And then there's just a deluge of questions about it. And like Trump doesn't even know whether Signal is an app or a device. Like, he has no concept of what's even going on with this thing. He's totally not informed about any of it. And he wasn't involved in decision making, we now know. He wasn't in the conversation. They hadn't yet decided whether they were going to strike or not. And they did that completely without him. So he had nothing to do with the decision. Like, he was not in the room, he was not in the chat. J.D. Vance was, and he was, debating whether they should or not. And so they went all through this, right? Which he should have been, the person with the most authority. He didn't want to strike it. And so, so there's all that. So there's a lot here to get to. But, it's, if nobody gets fired, then this is so like far gone in the Trump administration because there's just zero accountability. And it used to be the Republicans and the Democrats held their own accountable when it was something this big. They would vote along party lines, but they still had to. Some of them had to break from the group and just say, "Hey, this is fucked. We need to really deal with this." And then there's like Tulsi Gabbard and people like that who are military people who know this is fucked and they have to go and just pretend it's great. And so, it all confirms everything I've been saying. Like they were so far gone in our system. Like we're failure oriented. Like there's never a success. Like they're trying to brag about the strike. America has been doing strikes like this forever. They did under Biden, like drone strikes, whatever it is, and it's almost always a successful venture. And so the success part is just expected. America has military superiority. Then Hegseth tries to brag about the troops and that he wouldn't want to be a Houthi. We'll get into that. Because he lands in Hawaii and then he's got to deal with more questions, and they're trying to come up with a story, and there's no story. Like it's no fucking story. All right, so let's start. Well, let me see if I can find that video with Trump trying to shut down Caitlin Collins, and then the press conference or the Trump answering questions, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I just want to add one thing before we get into all this debacle. I think there's a lot of confusion about the reason for everything that's going on. Because, I think the majority of truthers and right-wing people believe that the system is being taken down just because the people who control the system are assholes, right? They're doing it to be vindictive or for controlling reasons or greed. When I say they installed Trump or other people say they installed Trump to take the system down, they think the motivation is they just want to make people suffer, and they're all the things that go with it. But it's more like the system is already dead from cancer. The system has economic cancer and moral cancer. It's already dead, but they haven't told you yet. Right? They haven't told us yet that it's dead. Like they know it's dead, and they know it's they can't. I mean, it's over, but they don't know how to break it to you. They're going to take away your lifestyle, and for whatever reason, everybody having guns, for example, in America, or any number of reasons that they just can't come out and tell you, hey, you're fucked, and it's over. You're already dead. The system's already dead. I mean, people don't like to give bad news. You go into a doctor's office, he's going to tell you have cancer, right? But how they tell a whole world, and really, starting with America, that it's over. The system's fucked, and your lifestyle is done, and all these things. Like how they get you to accept that without you just going apeshit, and all the things that go with that, right? And so this is what all this is about, getting you to understand the apocalypse has already happened. Because they've just been pretending, it's like a facade. It's like Weekend at Bernie's. They're propping Bernie up, pretending he's still alive, right? When, Bernie died days ago. So, I mean, I'm aware of that. I don't mention it every video because why would I? But that's my perspective on it. It's already, they know what's going to happen and what's already happened. Like they can't stop nature. They can't stop the divine forces. I call them the controllers, but they can control very little. It's not like they're just purposely destroying the system or any of these types of things. The system's already destroyed. They just have to get you to understand that. And, it's not going to be easy because people will find hopium, and there's always going to be some people saying, hey, no, we can save it. There's always going to be somebody making a buck off of your hopium. So, that's where we're at. And when people finally accept the system's fucked and it's whatever it takes to do that, then it'll, then the truth will come out of what's really going on, right? Like that movie Shallow Hal, where he gets hypnotized by that tall dude that's, whatever, motivational speaker, the character Hal, and he sees women who are obese and unattractive as beautiful, right? And then he just wants to go back to that because he was so happy when he saw it that way, right? He was happy with this girl who's, Gwyneth Paltrow when he looks at her, but in real life she's 400 pounds, right? So, it's like the Matrix when he wants to take the blue pill and go back into the Matrix, the Cypher character. People were like, hey, don't show me that, right? The Mahabharata, where Krishna shows Arjuna his true form. People are like, hey, don't show me that. Don't show me the truth. And that's what it's going to be like. It's like, oh, it's like a veil is pulled away and you realize that everything that you're looking at is like walking corpses. And, it's just, zombies and ghouls walking around. It's like the whole thing. They live where they put those glasses on. They see the truth of these skull aliens that are running the show, right? So the whole thing is, like that. Once the veil is lifted, then the truth sets in and people realize how fucked they are, right? But like everyone kind of senses it. It's just, they just don't want to admit to it, and it's going to be hard. It's a hard sell. And so speaking of hard sell, let's get into the stuff here. Okay, so the mainstream media sucks, which we all know. Caitlin Collins sucks. They all suck in different ways, and it's all mockable. It's horrible. It's bad. And I said Trump was, he should have done whatever that Truth Social thing he did. I said he should have done that before the election, because he should have seen that they were trying to fuck him on the election, right? Because of the mail-in ballots and the COVID thing. They're already trying to steal it from him. And again, I don't know how much, I don't know what, to what degree it was stolen, because there's a lot of Trump hatred going on there. But either way, they definitely, not just, the Fox News turned on him. He's back with Fox, but Fox fucked him. They called it for Biden before anybody else did. And they didn't do that on election night with Hillary Clinton. And you have to have you have to have somebody, like in mainstream media. And Fox is with him again, but they screwed him. And the neocons screwed him, and, there's all those things. And he had no place to go, and he couldn't post on social media because they soon banned him. Remember, they blocked him everywhere. And I said he should have done True Social then. Now, True Social has been a successful business venture for him, and he's going to make money off of that piece of shit thing he's doing. And again, the whole truth thing. And, he should have stopped talking to the mainstream media because they were just negative again. They were just negative about everything he did and said. And, it's deserved, too, because he sucks. But he could have went to what he's done now, which is alternative media. But these alternative media people are all yes people. They're not real truthers, not real alternative media. They're just right-wing shills. And so now he has those people in place, which, at least he learned his lesson because, but he's now gone full oligarch. And so it's fucked in different ways because it's not what the using alternative media is supposed to be. It's not so that you could just suck and not be held accountable for it, right? And so he wouldn't answer these people's questions, the mainstream media, because he knew he was fucked, and he has to do that because, this is what everyone's waiting for. Everyone's waiting to see what he's going to say about this, which I'll get into. But this is what happened first.
Situation we should have never had to even think about. Should have never happened.
Because Joe Biden, it's, it's all about how I should never have lost the election. It's all victim, poor me, fucking bullshit stuff, right? Yeah, but now you're president, so shut the fuck up and deal with it. You said you were going to fix it. Unless you were lying about that, then just fucking fix it, right?
And in the Middle East, that's been going on for a lot of years, centuries and centuries. It just keeps going. And we are making a lot of progress, so that's all I can report. But some very, very big talks are going and detailed talks are going on right now on both fronts.
Mr. President, you said that your national security advisor learned a lesson after a reporter...
Excuse me, I didn't pick you. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, the ceasefire...
Excuse me, I didn't pick you. But eventually he has to come back to her, and then when she does ask the question, which, she was always mild on Trump compared to other people, then it's just a deluge of questions. So let's get into that.
And for some reason, Democrats want to keep and they want to shield criminals from being sent back to their countries or being sent to prison. And in the meantime, the crime rate has gone through the roof Under Biden, it was through the roof. It's starting to come down, but we're taking a lot of people out of here. So we may be presenting you very shortly with a executive order ending sanctuary cities.
Okay, so Trump, they took a variety of questions here. And it took Caitlin Collins, of all people, I guess CNN's, on his shit list, but it took her to, well, here, let's watch this. But there was a number of questions he already answered.
Mr. President, are you going to change any of the practices that your national security officials used after a reporter was inadvertently added to a group chat about attacks on Yemen?
Well, I think it's a question I've been asked now, and I've given a few answers, and they've all been the same. We have an amazing group. Our national security now is stronger than it's ever been. We have had a very, very successful, numerous attacks on that area. These are people that shoot down ships, not only our ships, ships all over the world. They're shooting down right out of the water.
Right out of the water, they're shooting those down. They're shooting them in the water, like fucking the nerve of them.
And damaging them badly, or they're going down. They're also shooting anything that happens to be flying in the area.
Flying and it's stuff in the air, stuff in the water, stuff on land. I mean, they're shooting stuff. They like to shoot stuff on air, water, land. This kind of thing.
Hit them very, very hard. There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app.
Yeah, that's what we call those things, or apps, third-party apps. Okay, so they're debating whether this is called war plans or attack plans. And Tulsi Gabbard's going to later testify that there was no classified information, and then say, well, the Defense Department, Pete Hegseth is the guy in charge of what's classified, what isn't, right? So that's their defense. And he's going to come in. I'm going to show you him, Pete Hegseth, and he's going to say the same thing, right? So, he's going to say there's no classified information, but it is. It's classified. It's 100% classified. And it's 100% war plans or attack plans, whatever. We're not at war with the Houthis or Yemen, but, they're just trying to parse words here. They released the whole thing. Now the Atlantic has released all the attack plans. So it's, it's really bad. But let me show you this. This is from last night. So today's Wednesday, March 26th. And yesterday I did this before I lost it because it was really hard to find. And I don't know if it's easier. There's so much information coming in. When you do these searches, they don't go back to even stuff that happened 8 hours ago. It's coming in every moment. I just copied some stuff off the TV from Morning Joe where they're interviewing the guy because the Atlantic has now posted all the classified plans because they're lying, and now this whole thing is blowing up. I mean, it really depends on whether it's going to reach. Republicans are going to have to say, you got to fucking give us a head, right? Because,
A lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use. And I think I'll ask Mike. Mike is here. Do you want to respond to that, please?
Yes.
She's strong. He knows this is a big deal. He did his normal stuff about talking about how great everybody is and how great he is and these things, right?
Mr. President, you asked about lessons. I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's the Russia hoax or making...
Oh, Jesus. This is where you're going with it? You guys are freaking horrible. That's where you're going with it, bro? Who's this clown? I mean, it's a total Trump stuff. This has nothing to do with any of that stuff. Now, the people who have put out lies and exaggerations and some of the things were just unnecessary. I said this about Trump and I say this about everything. You don't need to embellish what's going on. We live in a cesspit of a world with lots of different levels of corruption and, even something like the beauty of nature. I get these nature videos and then people put music, like the videos themselves, even if it's like underwater stuff like fish and, scuba diving, people having underwater cameras where they just hear the bubbles. So you really can't hear the fish. And so they put music to it and it just wrecks it. And when they put music behind people talking and things, and then making up lies and exaggerating. Like I said, for truthers, you don't have to lie about anything because it's sensationalistic in itself, right? And so mainstream media has been shitty and, done a horrible job. And, fake news, all that stuff. But that has nothing to do with this. This is 100% on whoever put this guy in the chat, and with the levels of lack of security here and the complete screw up and bringing up fake news and talking about how journalists suck is not the answer. It's not what you need to be saying. It's a total lack of accountability. And there are people, Republican people, who are, who are only having to kiss Trump's ass because of all the, power and popularity he's had. And once that's gone, they don't like the guy. And they don't want to, they're looking for an opportunity to bail and move on from him for, all the reasons.
Making up lies about Gold Star families, and this one in particular I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are...
This is the guy, Mike Walsh, and I have some videos where they're now saying that Pete Hegseth, the blame should be transferred on him. But I didn't know this when I was covering it yesterday. I was a little bit groggy, and I'd never seen this guy before. But Trump brings him to this meeting, and he doesn't bring, Pete Hegseth is going to fucking Hawaii, so, which is, why, you don't need to be in Hawaii right now. We'll show you his press conference when he comes off the plane. Like it's all happening, major scandal stuff. And this guy is the guy who put the reporter in, but he claims he doesn't know him. And so there's a video here. Let me switch over to that. Again, I'm editing this in real time, right? I'm editing this Wednesday, March 26th. I took this video clip from yesterday, so it was on Tuesday this press conference was here. But let me show you this this revelation. So this is the scandal that wasn't. This is how Fox News is playing this. This is from last night. Mike Walsh takes full responsibility for embarrassing Signal text chain leak. And this is what this, C-word has to say about it.
Joining us now, one of the principals who was on that Signal chat, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Advisor Waltz, thank you for joining us tonight. The president expressed complete confidence in you today and his entire cabinet. But how did a Trump-hating editor of The Atlantic end up on your Signal chat?
Laura, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but of all the people out there, somehow this guy who has lied about the president...
Okay, so you got hacked then. Like, now this is not taking full responsibility. This guy's just a moron. Like, these people are stupid and just the worst people, right? Trump says he has the best people, but just, the inability to deal with this nightmare of a situation. And so for him to say, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but, there's a conspiracy, like what happened? You think the deep state hacked you? Someone had to invite the guy into this chat, right? You think Signal did it? I mean, what do you think happened? This guy, there was this guy called L. Donald Trumpo, who is just a pro-Trump person. I don't know what the guy's thing is, but once in a while his tweets show up on my feed. And he was posting, I think this guy testified and say the Signal app was already preloaded and blaming it completely on Biden. But just what a piece of shit, right? Like you guys invited him in. This isn't conspiracy. The guy didn't hack it. And if he did, you guys got hacked. This is bad. Like if you're saying this guy hacked you, then why are you arresting him, right? That he hacked his way into, come on. Like he hacked his, you guys put him in there. Somebody did, and it was him.
Chat.
Laura, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but of all the people out there, somehow this guy who has lied about the president, who has lied to Gold Star families, lied to their attorneys, and gone to Russia hoax, gone to just all kinds of links to lie and smear the president of the United States. And he's the one that somehow gets on somebody's contact and then gets sucked into this group.
Is someone...
He got on somebody's contact. How do you think he did that? Do you think he hacked your phone? Like, what do you think fucking happened here, bro? That he made his own contact on somebody's phone, and you guys gave him an invite to this class? I mean, how does that even fucking happen? Like, you should probably go over the list numerous times. I mean, Jesus Christ. how does this guy get in there? Well, I don't know. How does he get in there? One of you guys had to invite him in. Somebody who was an administrator in the group. Like, I don't know how the app works, right? And I know that's what had to happen. Like, this is supposed to be, I mean, if it's an open group and anybody could join, like, then you're using the wrong fucking app, right? So it should be at least in control of the administrators in the group, that only they can add people. And so who do you think added the guy? I mean, who added him? Like, everyone say it's you. And so he says Mike Waltz takes full responsibility for embarrassing Signal text chain. And there's no responsibility being taken here. And Fox News is completely failing on this, which of course they would. MSNBC did the same thing with Joe Biden, and so did CNN. They excused these things that were inexcusable. And what does it say when both sides are this fucking competent and the media is this skewed and partisan about your country? It means your country's fucked. It means that no one's taking responsibility for their massive fuck-ups and their inability to just do the basic fucking things, right?
In your intel, is someone in your intel team trying to cause trouble here? Because that's the scuttlebutt out there.
Look,
that
we have people. No, look, this is a great group. The president has a great team. This is not first term.
No, your team. I'm not talking about the other principals.
No. These were principals and a couple of staff that were coordinating, as you saw, having a policy discussion as we went forward, and then just in the days before, what was an incredible strike.
It was the best strike of all time. It was the greatest strike. America does this all the time. It's not like we're not good at it, right? We have the highest level technology. We got the fucking drones and shit. And this was jets. I mean, there's pilots in the air that could have been fucked by this release of this data because they could have been shot down because this was supposed to be something that, the reason you do these stealth strikes.
Not only did we take out people that the Biden team never could, that we took out headquarters, missile caches, and actually one of the leaders of the Houthi organization, we've since taken out several since. And, that's what they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the success here. They don't want to talk about the hostages.
You think this guy's story should have been what a success you guys were, and they accidentally added me to their group. They don't want to talk about how successful we are. Well, you add them to your group. Like, he might not have talked about how successful you were because, who gives a shit? You're bombing fucking people from, it's a cowardly act. These fucking drone strikes and this, all this stuff, dropping bombs on people. And they killed civilians. And it's confirmed in the chat. There's a girlfriend of one of the guys and they're laughing and talking about, like, there's an innocent civilian who just been killed, girlfriend of the guy. We don't even know if the girlfriend's like by choice or whatever, right? Like she's not necessarily a part of the whole thing. And there's other people in this building, apartment building that goes down. They killed innocent people, like they fucking did. So, and it's there. I'll show you those. Some of the chats are there.
Is getting released. They don't want to talk about the Black Sea ceasefire that we just put in place today as the president ends the largest land war in Europe, or the border, or the fact that Panama.
So how's he taking full responsibility? Like, no one wants to hear how great you fucking are. When you fucked up this bad and you lost. This is a loss. This is an L. You lost. No one wants to hear how great fucking you and Trump are, right? Because, you guys are doing this you have war with Canada right now. We have a tariff war, an economic war with Canada, not a necessary one. And people are starting to feel it. It's starting to hit. It's going to hit, for a while. And it's going to piss people off with their prices, what they're paying for food and everything else. And you guys, it's a failure. Like, everything you're doing is failure. The tariffs are a failure. This is a failure. Trump's a failure. Trump was even involved, like I said, in the chat, which is fucked. Because, he should have been. And now you've given away classified information on this, this third-party app. And it's fucked. And you're supposed to be here taking responsibility.
Just kicked China out of the canal, and success after success after success. So they want to focus on this. It's embarrassing, yes.
It's embarrassing, yes. Then focus on it. Just go there. We don't have to hear how great you are. Just fucking, it's embarrassing. That's it. It's embarrassing. Say it's embarrassing.
or the border, or the fact that Panama just kicked China out of the canal, and success after success after success. So they want to focus on this. It's embarrassing, yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I just talked to Elon on the way here. We've got the best technical minds looking at how this happened. But
okay, so you're going to have technical minds now who are unclassified going into this app? How this happens? When you guys invited the fucking person in? Like, you had to do that. That had to be what happened, right? With me not even knowing, never using this app and just hearing about it 2 days ago. Like, if if this thing is to be used by people, probably not for classified information, but even, secured information, it has to be excluded to the people that you invite into the group. This cannot be a public group. This cannot be a group that you hack your way into. You think the guy hacked his way in here? That's your fucking story? And that Elon is going to now come in and fucking save the day and not give classified information to China, who's fucking got his balls in a vice? Like, what are you talking about, bro?
I can tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation, and he really is the bottom scum of journalists. And I know.
And you gave the fucking classified information to him. Like, you're not making your case better. One of you motherfuckers put him in the text chat, and none of you guys figured it out. And now, like, it's fucked, right? And so, if the worse the guy is, then the worse your blunder is. Like, you just keep on burying yourself.
Know him in the sense that he hates the president, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone.
He wasn't on my phone.
Figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number? Have you
ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like.
Okay, so you never talked to this guy. You didn't know who he was, but he was in your phone. So he's in your phone, and he's under a different name. So you've created a fucking contact in your phone. So this is what happened. You don't need Elon Musk for this. You just told us what happened. You ever have somebody who has it says their contact information, but it's actually somebody else's phone number? No, I've never fucking had that. Now again, I got about 5 people on my phone, but that's a silly thing to have. Like, you create your contact list. Why would this even guy be on your contact list? He's fucking a liberal, Trump-hating journalist from the Atlantic. So why would he even be in your phone? And this is why you don't use third-party apps like this. You use secure apps where only the people, the app, it shouldn't even be an app. It should be something that you guys have created, and your phone shouldn't be involved, right? Like, this shouldn't be stuff that's going from people's phones. Everyone should be in that room or whatever it is, like what Trump said. Well, we're going to get into it because Trump's going to say, if it was up to me, we wouldn't even use these apps. It is up to you. So we'll get into that in a moment. So just a little bit more of this. This is great. Let's go back to that.
Take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
It's your job. Ask him a question. How did your number? How do you do this?
Ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right?
What are you doing here? You're a fucking journalist. This guy's fucked up, right?
You've got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now, whether he did it deliberately or
he grabbed your phone and put his number in with under somebody else's contact. How the fuck did he do that? Like, you just said, you built the group. You invited everybody in from your fucking list on your phone. And so somebody had access to your phone. You said, I don't know this loser, the fucking loser. Fucking these guys, I mean, the R word is really, it's so stupid. And the response is so stupid and so childish and so remedial. And so we're going to get into it. Like there's some great response from fake Christian Barbie truther and all this stuff. They're getting just the semantics of this thing, getting into word salad to try to get away from what happened. But you're saying the guy got into your phone and put his number in under somebody else's name. Is that his conspiracy theory? This guy from the Atlantic somehow got access to your phone and hacked it to put it in, and so that he did this because he figured that someday you would just include him in a signal group, right?
Happen in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
So your staffer did not put
the fact that you don't know how the fuck this happened is also concerning. Like, you don't know how this happened, so it could totally happen again. Like, if you don't know how it happened, then then it's going to happen again because you haven't solved the problem. You don't even know how the problem occurred. And so you built the group. You should know how he got in. If you don't, then it's totally fucked, right? And you're trying to say that you're competent?
His contact information.
No,
but how did it end up in your
well, that's
phone?
what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, but that's a pretty big problem.
That's what we've got the best technical minds, right?
That's just
best technical minds. You need technical fucking minds for this. You guy was in your phone. Like, a guy was in your fucking phone. You've never met the guy. So somebody in your administration fucked you, in your office fucked you, and did this. If you're saying that somebody put his number to somebody else's contact information, and you had the wrong number in there, like, how the fuck, you don't need technical people to know how to do that, right? But what do you need technical people? What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, what's I'm trying to figure out? Like, how the fuck does that happen? Who has access to your phone and your phone's contact list? Like, that's what the first place you should look. Should be waterboarding motherfuckers right in your staff right now.
That's where, I'm sure everybody out there has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never...
Yeah, no, that hasn't happened. I don't know how the fuck that could happen. But, when I include a contact, it's just right when I'm, right after I've talked to somebody. It's usually some business that I'm going to need to call back again. And so I put the business name in there, right? And so, like, it's stupid. And you would fucking double check that anyway, right? And so, these people that you're contacting, you were probably having lots of phone conversations with and texting back and forth to these people, coordinating these things with the group or whatever it is. And so if you did it and, it didn't go to them, if they didn't respond, then you would fucking know that. It's just fucking silly. You're a silly little guy. What a silly little dude. We don't know how it happened. It's like you guys are like the little rascals in some little women hating club in your little clubhouse doing stupid shit, and you don't know how your security got messed up because your children, right? Like, it's just...
Never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone? I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then somehow it gets
someone
sucked
sent
in,
you that
it gets
contact.
sucked in.
Was there someone else?
Okay, so then you don't need Elon Musk for that. Somebody sent you a contact, and the person who sent you the contact sent you his number with somebody else's name. So that person fucked you, right? That person fucked you. And so who is that person? And then you have to go. Like, you're done. Like, you should just quit right now. Like, he's just, if you guys, the way you talked about Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and they're leaking classified information, you're done. Like, you should not survive this. You're a moron anyways, an idiot. Like, you can just tell by the way he talks and his attitude. He's just, he's just like Trump, right? Narcissistic and arrogant. And, I take full responsibility. No, you don't. Your head would be on Trump's desk right now. Like, it's embarrassing what you did. And there's no getting away from this, right? And if they don't fire somebody, this is the Republican people in the media realize, they know at Fox News they have to fire this guy. She knows it. Like, that's what should happen. That's what used to happen. That means there's zero accountability. And all their bullshit they saying about Biden's incompetence is now, you can't really say that shit anymore. You will. How bad Biden is, how great you guys are. And if you were really manning up here, you would go on MSNBC or CNN and you would do a real interview with somebody who's going to ask you hard questions, not Laura Ingalls, who says the title of this is The Scandal That Wasn't, right? It's a total fucking scandal. It's a mammoth scandal. And nobody watches Fox News, but more people watch Fox News than CNN and MSNBC, but not today, right? Everybody's tuning into them because of what you've done here. And this thing is blowing up. Like the incompetence and the way you're handling is making it fucking way worse. Like you say one guy fucked up, right? One guy and a staff member sent me the wrong contact. We shouldn't be using this app. And I should have known better. We should have double checked the list. That's all you had to say. You could have just done that, and then somebody hands in their fucking resignation, and you move on. Like this is a isolated incident, had nothing to do with Trump, had nothing to do with Hegseth. This is how it happened. And then Hegseth has to take responsibility for using this third-party app, and he maybe goes or not. I mean, he should go because he's fucking useless anyway. He's a tool, and you can find just somebody just like him, right? But these are obviously people who are Trump people who thinks Trump is the bee's knees. You're the bee's knees. Right?
Supposed to be on the chat that wasn't on the chat that you thought was
So
on
the
the chat?
person that I thought was on there was never on there. It was this
Who
guy.
was that? What person?
Well, I'm not. Look,
Okay.
Laura, I take responsibility.
Fuck. It was Trump. It's just Trump was supposed to be on there, right? It had to be Trump. That would be great if it was Trump. Holy shit.
I built the group.
Okay.
So but look, that's the part that we have to figure out, and that's the part that embarrassing, yes, but Pete and I are veterans. We know these operations. He has been an excellent Secretary of Defense, and this was an operation that, I mean, it amazes me. I guess the Democrats were fine to leave all the sea lanes shut down. We're fine to have destroyers.
Okay, so nobody gives a shit about that. Like, this happened, whatever, weeks ago. I mean, so much shit has happened. You guys almost leaked classified war plans of China to a guy who's got business deals with China, a guy who asked for it, Elon Musk, who doesn't have security clearance. And then only an article from the New York Times saved you from that fucking scandal. So that could have been disaster. But whatever you guys do, you're always going to say how great you are and how bad Biden used to be. That's what you do every fucking day. That's what Trump does every day. We hear that all the time. This has nothing to do with that, right? Someone was not on the chat that was supposed to be on the chat, and that person is maybe Trump, right? But the guy you invited in was the worst guy, and it's on you, and fucking you shouldn't have a job.
Fired on dozens of times by this terrorist group, and fine to have Iran keep supplying them missiles. That was okay. The president takes decisive action. And now we're seeing some real success in taking down their air defenses, opening the sea lanes, taking out their leadership. We don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about this.
Now, the Atlantic.
So you're a victim. You're a victim?
Told us in part that attempts to disparage and discredit us and our reporting follow an obvious playbook by elected officials and others of power who are hostile to journalists and First Amendment rights of all Americans. They're saying don't blame the messenger. Your response to them?
Lied about Russia, lied about Gold Star families.
This is not what we're talking about. None of these things are relevant to you. Not inviting someone who should have been on the chat and inviting a person you're saying is like the worst person.
Lied about even as last year in terms of the president paying for the family of a Gold Star family that he absolutely did. I mean, lie after lie after lie.
Have they ever apologized for any of that?
No. I mean,
okay, yeah, but that's not. Who gives a shit? They suck. All right, they 100% suck. Let's say the Atlantic sucks as bad as anything sucks. You invited them onto a chat that was just supposed to be senior member Trump officials, and you posted classified war plans on this fucking Signal app. They're calling it Signalgate, and so they never apologized for that. Well, who gives a shit? Your Fox News, a fucking dopey audience. Like, this is not what you do. You fucked up. Eat shit. Like, you're supposed to be eating shit right now. Start fucking shoveling shit in your mouth. Get a big ass fucking shovel and start shoveling shit in your mouth and start eating it, because that's what you're supposed to do here. And that's what a military person would do. This is what it's inexcusable. Like, you put pilots in jeopardy. And, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. I'm not fucking patriot. I don't give a shit about this military bullshit that Republicans, I don't care about it, right? You're bombing innocent fucking people. I don't have any fucking respect for it. But I know that bombing innocent people keeps my lifestyle going. And so I'm as much of accountable as everybody else is. We're all accountable because we have to, these guys have to do bad shit. And then maybe not that, because has to do with Israel and Iran and all that. But, in general, the CIA and the military does horrible things to keep this shitty system going. Like, I'm totally aware of that. And I'm not blaming them for that. That's the fucking, I wouldn't do it, but, somebody has to. And not that I think the system should be going at any cost, but that's the way it is, right? They're not going to let the system collapse. But in all that, you fucked up here. You went against your own military bullshit that you're supposed to keep this stuff secure, and you failed, and now you got to eat shit. And don't blame some fucking journalist or the liberal media for your fuck up, right? Because that's what you say Joe Biden used to do. Okay, so the beginning of this interview with Laura Ingraham, she played what I'm going to show you now. And this is from last night, so I didn't know any of this stuff we just saw. He hadn't even said this yet when I covered this last night. So let's show you what he and Trump said. And now we know so much more. And, my commentary is from yesterday, so it's, it's going to seem like I didn't even know who this guy was. Like, I didn't know, as Trump brought this guy in there, I didn't know it was him. And so this guy's, going on the attack when you're supposed to be on the defensive. Like, this is old Karl Rove stuff. You always attack. You never admit to anything. You never, surrender. You never, you never take any kind of responsibility. You always deflect and attack the other people, which, might work for dopes, but it's not. It's low-level shit, right? When you're doing stuff like this, you're incompetent, and then there's no accountability. The whole thing is when you fuck up like this, then people have to be fired. And who gives a shit if people are fired, right? This guy will bounce back. It doesn't even matter. Like, this is bigger than him or Trump or anybody like this. And it doesn't even matter whether you fire people or not. But this is, Trump is saying we get to be incompetent because we're so much better than Joe Biden, which they're not, right? And they're running the fucking country into the ground. Anyways, let's get back to yesterday's press thing with Trump and this clown.
And we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room. But I'll tell you what, the world...
You think he did it, right? Like, you're blaming him. So, first of all, if a reporter hacked you, if this was Biden, Trump would be on this about how bad Biden is and how the worst people and how he could let this happen. He said this stuff about Hillary and her handling of classified documents. And when Biden mishandled classified documents, he was all over them, right? And, this guy's saying how that guy got into the room. No, he didn't work his way in there. He didn't even know he was in the fucking room, bro. He thought it was a hoax. One of your clowns sent him an invitation or included him in the chat, and he looked at it and he was like, "What's going on here?" And you're making it about him, like it's like he scammed his way in. If you have that lack of security, let's say he did that. Let's say he found a way to hack his way in there, then that's on you. If some reporter from the Atlantic found his way to hack his way in there, then every country in the world has been hacking your Defense Department and knows everything that's going on, right? They have much better hackers. Think Russia and China don't have better hackers than the fucking Atlantic? That's your excuse? I don't know how the guy got in there, but it's kind of rude that he did. Fuck that guy.
world owes President Trump a favor. Under Biden, global shipping was shut down. Pinprick attacks, months between them, our destroyers being fired upon dozens of times. President Trump took decisive action with his national security team, took out the head missileer, knocked out missiles.
Okay, so he wasn't even in the chat, bro. And so this has nothing to do with the effects of the mission. This is about addressing your fuck up. You fucked up in a major way and let out classified information. You had your Defense Department secretary and that other guy, whatever, Walsh, committed, felonies and could be prosecuted, and they both should be fired. It's a breach of protocol. It's a breach of, I mean, all the things that military people are expected not to let war plans leak, right? I mean, even Trump, when he was running, said he had a way of getting rid of ISIS. And they asked him, how are you going to do that? He said, I'm not going to give you my plans. I mean, even as a candidate, when he didn't know anything about the military and he really didn't have plans, all he had to do was stop ordering ISIS, which was an American asset, to do shit. But he was smart enough to know then that you don't tell people what your plans are. Oh, yeah, I can get rid of this group, or we can shut this down. How are you going to do it? Well, since it's an adversarial situation, we're not going to give away our game plan or our war plan, right? You gave away war plans to a reporter, a liberal reporter. And that's 100% on you. There's no bullshit thing that you can say to blame it on other people.
Knocked out headquarters, knocked out communication sites, and for once, as we hear, as you all hear from every one of our allies, thank God for American leadership again. Thank God for American strength.
Holy shit.
You're welcome.
Woo! Woo!
And look, we had a national security team that was coordinating these efforts, as Director Radcliffe testified today. His first day on the job, he was introduced to this app on his government systems at the CIA and at the State Department and otherwise. So, look, this journalist, Mr. President, wants the world talking about more hoaxes and this kind of nonsense rather than the freedom.
So you're saying it's a hoax? You're saying it's a fucking hoax. Every other journalistic, every other news agency is reporting this as you fucking up and this being a real thing. If you're saying that this app is already being used by all these people, then that's an issue, because if you're carrying on what Biden did and you're saying Biden did this to you, and we should remove that app, the Biden app, you call it the Biden app. And if Biden was the worst president in history and you're undoing everything that he did, then you should have done that before you leaked classified information, bro.
That you're enabling, and a key part of our sovereignty is open sea lanes and knocking the crap out of terrorists, which is exactly what your team and Pete Hegseth, a good friend and fellow veteran, is leading the charge on, and it's an honor.
We had a very, very successful...
Boom, yeah. Like, this is not the kind of shit you need to be saying. But they're not. This is exactly how they're going to handle it. Blaming the fake. I told you this, and if he does fire somebody, that means that he knows that this is I don't know, almost an impeachable offense, right? Something where it's a major fuck up.
Excuse me. We had a very, very successful evening, and we've had numerous successful evenings and days in that area. The Houthis are absolutely on the run. The worst.
Boom, we're kicking ass. I don't even know you guys are talking about that.
Them has been killed. This should have been done a long time ago by Biden, but Biden was an incompetent president.
Yeah, exactly. Not like me. I don't like leak classified information or anything.
He didn't know where he was going. He had no clue. This guy had no clue. This should have been done a long time ago.
Now, when should have this been done? Oh, a long time ago.
They shoot missiles at ships, randomly shoot missiles at ships. And they make their own missiles. This is not an incompetent group of people.
They're making missiles over there, and they're shooting them at ships and stuff.
Their own missiles. They get the missiles also from Iran. It's an offshoot of Iran, another offshoot. You have Hamas, you have Hezbollah, you have the Houthis. You got a lot of stuff going on with Iran. And we sent a letter to Iran. You're going to have to be speaking to us one way or the other.
Iran.
Pretty soon, because we can't let this happen. But that's an app that a lot of people use, and somebody got on. I happened to know the guy's a total sleazebag.
He's a total sleazebag. He got on there somehow. When some guy that I appointed sent him an invitation and put him in the group without his knowledge, a group that he didn't even know existed, and he thought it was a joke when he found out. Fuck that guy. That guy's horrible. He snuck into a group he didn't even know existed. That's the kind of sleazeball he is.
The Atlantic is a failed magazine.
It's failed, the Atlantic. Yeah, it's failed. It's fake news.
It does very, very poorly. Nobody gives a damn about it.
Nobody gives a damn about the Atlantic, especially now that this story broke and everybody's talking about it.
This gives it a little bit of a shot. And I will tell you this, that they've made up more stories. And they're just a failing magazine. The public understands that. He's a very good man. That man is a very good man right there that you criticize so strongly. He's a very good man, and he will continue to do a good job. In addition to him, we had very good people in that meeting, and those people,
the liberal reporters that got in there, snuck in there.
Have done a very, very effective job, and you're going to see it. And it goes on, by the way. It's going to go on. And I think the Houthis wish that it didn't happen, but that's what it's all about. We have to create a safe country.
That's what it's all about, is those Houthis. When, you know, the Houthis and the Blowfish are pissed too.
A safe world, and that's what we're doing.
Do you worry that national security was put at risk, Mr. President?
Of senior officials using signal.
Do I plan to ban who?
The use of signal to communicate from senior officials.
Well, I don't know I don't know anything about Signal. I wasn't involved in this. But
I don't know anything about Signal. I don't know anything about fucking apps. Well, why should I know about these things that we use to communicate war plans and shit on?
Communicate from senior officials.
Well, I don't know anything about Signal. I wasn't involved in this, but I just heard about it, and I hear it's used by a lot of groups. It's used by the media a lot. It's used
your media doesn't have classified information, so it's not the same thing, brah.
by a lot of the military, and I think successfully. But sometimes somebody can get onto those things. That's one of the prices you pay when you.
No, fucking no. I mean, if Republicans had any kind of a spine, because Republicans, this means more to them than anybody. And they would have been all over Joe Biden about this. I mean, they would have not given up. I mean, Fox News and all these people, they would have demanded a head. You know, this is bad. And whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, they can't allow this to happen. Like, this is fucking bad for, you know, the military is supposed to be sacred to them. And this fish boy motherfucker right here is making excuse that sometimes I guess that's going to happen. They're going to continue using Signal, and once in a while, someone who's not supposed to get there, be on there, is going to get access to our war plans. Who, you know, and look at what I mean. This is what the price we have to pay for using these apps.
You're not sitting in the situation room with no phones on, which is always the best, frankly. But you know, the best is to be there. In fact, oftentimes I've been in fact, just last week I was in the situation room on something very important, and we had a couple of people hooked up by line, and I said, cancel the line. Sorry, fellas, what you do is we'll tell you all about the meeting, because I know people do get on those lines, whether it's Signal or anything else. Yeah.
So are you going to
What the fuck are you talking about?
change any procedures as a result of this?
Well, I mean, look, we look at everything, and you know they've made a big deal out of this because we've had 2 perfect months. We are bringing
They've made a big deal about this. Just completely clueless about this. And he's going to get away with it because he has a Republican Senate and a Republican House, and Republicans are nutless. They will not challenge this president. They won't do anything. I mean, they should be calling for, you know, unless they're going behind closed doors to say, you better get one of these motherfuckers. Like, you have to, you know, I mean, this statement is horrible. Like, you had to, I mean, again, imagine if Biden had done this and what Trumpers and Trump would be saying about it. It's horrible. Like, this is just fucking shows you what a boob he is. He doesn't even know how bad this is. Or he just, you know, I mean, he just thinks that he can't do any wrong. And whatever he does is okay. Whatever Biden did was horrible. Like, it's just, you know, his mentality. I mean, you know, as part of the show, sure. But he believes this shit, right? Like Trump believes everything he's doing. If he was playing a part here at some point, he's in it. Like, he's forgot that he's acting. Like, you know, not that he could act, but he's, you know, he's just totally in this thing.
in business. We have another one announced tomorrow, a big one, very big. Like in the history of our country, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I think probably a lot of people are saying they started by saying it was the greatest first month that a president has ever had.
Who said that? Nobody said that. Your people are fucking pissed about it's falling apart, bro. People are pissed about the whole thing with the tariffs and all the rest of it. You almost gave secret war plans for China for a guy compromised who has business dealing with China who asked for them, and Elon Musk, who's an untrustworthy alien motherfucker. And then you have all this other shit that's going on. I mean, like space alien.
And I think that's true. And now they say it's the best second month, and they had to find something. And
They had to find something. It's the best second month, but they had to find something, right? It's the best second month in history of presidents. They had to find something to complain about. I mean, the tariffs are going so well. And the thing that happened with Elon Musk and Doge is going so well. And people aren't freaked out at all. And the freaking whatever's going on in the country, everyone's so psyched about what I'm doing. They had to find some flaw. It's like something like it's like he's listening to his wife nag. I'm the greatest husband of all time. And, she's always finding something. I mean, so what, killed the hooker, so what? Well, I mean, I didn't I give you flowers last week, honey? It's like he's like talking about this shit like he's fucking, like it's not some small thing. You leaked classified war plans after almost doing it with Elon Musk about lying about Canadian milk prices and the tariffs for Canadian American milk being shipped to Canada that was under your deal that the North American trade deal that you did with Canada and Mexico and all these things, and bullshitting people and lying to them about the fact that you're going to bring down prices and then doing the exact opposite by putting in tariffs. And the country's falling apart. You got a bunch of chuckleheads in there, and now you've leaked war plans. Like, this has never happened in my lifetime. And, of course, there was none of these apps. But, I mean, it was such a ridiculous story. There's zero accountability. Of course there would be, because he doesn't admit to anything. He's a fucking, he's a grifter. Like, grifters can't say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like that character, Catch Me If You Can, that the guy who's posing as a pilot. Whatever that actor's name is, Leonardo DiCaprio. And he decided to pose as a doctor, and he got really good at forging documents, and they hired him at some hospital, and he knew nothing about medicine, and he was on the emergency. You put him in charge of the emergency floor, and people were asking him about things and what they should do about it, and he didn't know because he wasn't fucking a doctor, right? Like, that's just like this incompetent clown who's a grifter, and grifters, all they concentrate on is selling you. It's a confidence game, and when you started asking them questions, it crumbles.
This certainly will look at this, but the main thing was nothing happened. No, the attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience. I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael. He's a good person. The person that was on just happens to be a sleazebag. So maybe that's just.
Is Michael the guy? Is that Michael Walsh? Because he was the one who invited the guy on. And Pete Hexbeth is the guy who leaked these plans. So both of them committed major blunders here.
Coincidence, I don't know.
But you are going to conduct
Would
an
it be a
investigation,
problem if
Mr.
the
President.
Atlantic released all the text messages if they're not classified?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to ask the military about that because, maybe you wouldn't want that. I don't know. I will say this.
Maybe you wouldn't want that? If it was classified, you wouldn't want that? The guy's a reporter, a liberal reporter. It could have been anybody. You should not have been a fucking Jesus Christ.
From what I heard, the man that we're talking about, who's not somebody that I don't think most people have ever heard of, he left. He found it very boring, and he left early. He got off the line very early.
He was freaked the fuck out, and he didn't think it was real. And when he realized it was real, he got off because he knew he wasn't supposed to be on there, and whatever it is, right? So he found it very boring. Holy shit, right? There's a story about this. They've all read the story. Have you not read his story? Because you should be reading his story before coming out and fucking. They should not have put him in this position. I thought they were going to hide him away for a couple days, like they used to do with Biden. But Jesus Christ, he's totally unprepared for this.
So I can't speak to it other than that. So he's made up a lot of stories, and I think.
I thought nobody ever heard of him, and nobody's likes the guy, and he doesn't. What are you talking about? They can't be both things.
Basically bad for the country, but it's a failing venture, very failing venture. They're very upset, and a thing like this is publicity for them. But I don't think we should allow people that are very good, like that man sitting right at the end of the table, who's done a great job. We shouldn't allow them to be hurt by it.
What? What? Let them be hurt by leaking, by their blunders and their failures? You're firing people who you've never heard of you don't even know what they're doing. Elon Musk is going through and just firing people, random fucking people who are doing these jobs, maybe for 10, 20 years. Maybe they're good at it, maybe they're not, but you don't even know. This guy had a major fuck up. He leaked classified information to a reporter in a most incompetent way. And they all have to be fired, both of them. They should both be gone. Like, it's embarrassment. Like, and you should be saying, "Oh my God, they fucked up." They need to. We need better people. This should never have happened. It might be a bad thing. I don't know. Who knows? It worked out okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you saying you're okay with the continued use of Signal by administration officials?
No, that's not what I said. I said we'll look into it.
We'll look into it.
Everybody else seems to be using it. It seems to be the number one used device or app, whatever you want to call it.
An app. It's not a device. It's an app. You don't even know what the fuck it is. Like, that's how fucking incurious this guy is. And this is how ill-prepared. A device or app. No, it's an app that's on these people's phones, and the phone shouldn't be there because phones can be turned into listening devices by Apple or any of these places, Google. You're not allowed to have your phones in these meetings. And you bring your phone in and you're using an app on your phone. And what if somebody's hacked your phone or somebody has access to your phone or any number of things, which can happen to any of these people. And so 18 different people are bringing their phones with this app and other apps to this meeting, to this, wherever they're, located. And there might be listening devices in their house and other things, right? Like, who knows what else is going on there. And so you should know whether this is an app or it's a device, right?
And we will certainly look. If it was up to me, everybody would be sitting in a room together. The room would have solid...
Why isn't it up to you? What do you mean it's you're the commander-in-chief? It's totally something you could order. This is something you're signing fucking these executive orders. You're in charge of this. You're the commander-in-chief. You could say, from now on, all these things, everyone has to be in the room. There's no more apps and no more communication like this. Everyone's got to be in the room. If it was up to me, if I had some kind of position of power, fuck.
Lead walls and a lead ceiling and a lead floor.
And they could all die of lead poisoning.
Life doesn't always let you do that. In the meantime, the attack itself that we were talking about.
What do you mean life doesn't always let you do that? That's their fucking job. And so when you guys are doing these, whatever it is, these operations, they're kind of important. People's lives are at stake. You're killing innocent people more than likely, and you're putting American soldiers' lives at risk. And you might, these things could escalate into World War III. I mean, you don't want these things just being done over apps and done over frickin' Zoom or some shit. They should be in a fucking room, right?
About and discussing has been an unbelievable success.
But you will conduct an investigation, is what you're saying into this.
We'll look into it, sure.
We'll look into it, sure. Fuck, bro.
I would look into it, sure. I want to look.
Yeah, I'll look into it. Hey, sure, we'll look into it. Yeah. It's like he's talking to a mafia boss. Yeah, we'll look at. What about the police? No, we don't need to get the police. Let's just we'll take care of it. Yeah.
Anything like that, I would ask them. It's not really an FBI thing. It's really something having to do with security. Security, like, will somebody be able to break in? Are people able to break into conversations? And if that's true, we're going to have to find some other form of...
Holy shit. If it's true, we're going to use it for a couple more years. But, if this problem arises again, we'll have to do something different.
Of device. And I think that's something that we may have to do. Some people like Signal very much. Other people probably didn't find out. If people are able to break into a system, now in this case it wasn't that this attack was going on and nobody found out anything. And again, the person that was on, as I understand it, he left very early because he didn't find it very exciting. But
Jesus Christ.
I think it's something you should look into.
Yes, sir, we are. We have our technical experts looking at it. We have our legal teams looking at it. And of course, we're going to keep everything as secure as possible. No one in your national security team would ever put anyone in danger. And as you've said, and we've repeatedly said, the attack was phenomenal and it's ongoing. But
phenomenal.
The media wants to talk about everything else except
they want to talk about everything else. That's what the media wants to talk about. Fuck the media. They just care about classified leaked documents and shit like that. But I mean, according to us, the attack was very successful, and we tell them, hey, we're very successful at everything, and that the terrorists are going successfully, and everything's going successfully, and they just want to talk about the things that they think aren't successful. It's fucking crazy.
Hostages you're getting out of the Middle East, Iran on its back foot, sea lanes getting reopened, peace in Europe. As we just saw today with a Black Sea ceasefire, we were just on with Steve Witkoff, myself, our team in Saudi Arabia. They want to talk about all this.
You were on Signal? Where were you on Signal?
Other stuff except for your amazing successes and the successes.
Oh my God, this is such, like, fucking Emperor has no clothes. Like, this is fucking bad, right? Like this, there's no accountability, there's no checks and balances. This is fucking horrible, which we knew, but like, look at how bad they're doing here. Like, they can just dismiss any fuck up like this. Oh, we're the best people ever. Like, you guys aren't paying attention to our successes. You're not talking about the good things we do. Why you guys always fucking whining about the bad things, nagging at us and fucking, yeah, how successful I am.
To move very quickly, and there are other devices that are very good, but they are very, very cumbersome, and you're not able to use them, and from a practical standpoint. So, all we can do is find out.
Somehow they're editing out shit here. I'm not psyched about that.
We have with modern technology. They'll probably get better over the years. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, on the Black Sea, so the Kremlin has said that there were several conditions that would need to be met for this agreement to happen.
Okay, so I'll come back to this. So this Cruella de Vil thing she's got going on here. That'll happen. I had this clip. It was MSNBC or CNN, and they were, playing the Pete Hegseth thing. I believe it was a clip from I thought there was 2 times he gave a plane interview in Hawaii, but I guess it was way out, and then when he landed there. And like, what the hell is he doing in Hawaii? He needs to be, he needs to be here facing up to the music, right? But they were playing the clip where he denied any classified information. And so what we're going to see here, let's watch this here first. They pulled the clip. I think it was in my history and it's gone now. So I think they because the people on CNN were like, well, maybe there wasn't any, maybe that he drew the one line that Pete Hegseth did was he didn't deny any of the stuff that happened, only that, and now they're of course they're admitting that this guy was on with them. They're just denying that it was classified war plans, and we're going to get into the semantics of it. It's hilarious. The fake Christian Barbie truthers involved with that. But let's watch this right here.
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time.
So,
and I
so the attack sequencing and timing and weapons and targets you don't consider should have been classified?
I defer to the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council on that question.
With respect to the assertions and the allegations that there was strike packages or targeting information or things that relate to DOD, as I've pointed out, the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for determining whether something's classified or not. And as I've understood from media reports, the Secretary of Defense has said the information was not classified.
So he declassified it conveniently because he leaked it accidentally to a guy that is like says the worst journalist in history. So, and their sworn enemy. And so like it's such a clown show. So then the Atlantic comes back and releases all the stuff today. And so I'm going to go through some of the text. There's a great exchange here. Let's go to Morning Joe. Okay, so this is a 10-minute video. And 7 minutes in, I had turned the TV on and I watched this exchange. It's just great coming. Where the guy is asking the reporter what he feels about the fake Christian Barbie truthers tweet, which is just hilariously stupid, which I'll get to in a moment. But you know, Morning Joe is one of the worst shows. It just is. And they're just over the top, and the way that they, you know, they slathered all over Biden, and they, you know, all the stuff that they did. That you guys know, you know, my mocking of them. But now they don't have to lie and don't have to embellish, and they don't. This is their victory lap. And you know, Trump stepped in it, and he continuously makes it worse, and that's the problem. I said this about Hilaria Baldwin. You don't know how to make it better. Like you just, you know, at very least you just disappear. Like, you know, like it's not that hard to just, you know, go dark and not, you know, not be available for comment, right? You just don't talk at all. I mean, you just let the thing, you know, you let the echo chamber just, you let some other scandal come in, you know, whatever it is. I mean, you don't, you know, but you don't do what they're doing here, which is the worst.
Magazine's Jeffrey Goldberg was added to a text thread about U.S. military plans to strike Houthi.
Oh, yeah, tell us about this, Mika, this wonderful story.
Militias in Yemen. Well, the administration officials involved, who are among the highest ranking in the U.S. government, insist no classified information was shared. Moments ago, a follow-up. Goldberg posted a follow-up piece entitled, "Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal." He writes in part this: the statements by Hegseth, Gabbard, Ratcliffe, and Trump, combined with the assertions made by numerous administration officials that we are lying about the context of the Signal texts, have led us to believe that people should see the texts in order to reach their own conclusions. And then laid out in this latest piece, which broke just now in The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, everyone can see the text for themselves.
Yeah, the screenshots of the text are included in this piece that Jeffrey Goldberg and Shane Harris just posted on The Atlantic's.
Okay, so we're going to get into all that. So here's some of the stuff here. He's going to read it. And I'm going to go, I'll scroll through it and see if there's anything interesting there. Some of it's here, right? But, you know, you've made it worse. Like you sort of challenged them to come and do this, right? And now they've done it. Like they've released these things and they're bad. It's bad.
Texts in this chat. F-18's launch declares this the first strike package. At 1:45, talks about how the trigger-based strike window begins. Target terrorist is at known location. As here we are here. Second strike at 15:36. More to follow. We're currently clean on OPSEC. Of course, Secretary of Defense declares they're clean on OPSEC.
Yeah.
Which is, they're not, right? That's like a big, you know, they're not, because he's leaking this to a dude who's, according to him, he's sitting in a Safeway parking lot. A Godspeed to our warriors. But, like, if he had leaked this to somebody else, and we now know from this other clown that he had the wrong number for the right contact information. So, if the wrong number had been to somebody who was on the other side, because they communicate with, you know, foreign leaders, ambassadors from other countries, any number of people, somebody from Saudi Arabia, for example, who was, you know, sympathetic to this or whatever it is, right? So if it had been the wrong number, had been a different number, they could have shot down these planes and killed American pilots. I mean, if that had been the case, right, if that leaked information led to something like that, which easily could have been the case, this would be an absolute disaster.
In a text chain read by the editor of The Atlantic, who was inadvertently added to that group. And we'll note a short time later, we have further updates from Michael Waltz, the National Security Advisor, who talks about how the target has been hit, declaring positive identifications. So these...
I mean, just look at this dude.
would seem to me the very definition of attack plans. And I've already talked to a former Pentagon official who says, reading these screenshots hurriedly, of course, everything in here would be classified.
And leading up to that, of course, a lot of debate about it openly on Signal. Joining us now, Editor-in-Chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg. Jeffrey, would you like to talk a little bit more about the decision to release these?
Well, sure. Well, first of all, we didn't do this lightly. And all yesterday...
Oh, just stop, right? You couldn't wait to get the opportunity to do this. You know, I mean, people are looking at The Atlantic and hearing about The Atlantic. I mean, this is like, you know, as much as they say they hate you and as much as they say that you're a horrible reporter. They have just handed you a gift in every possible level.
We were asking our contacts across the administration, national security complex, CIA, DNI, et cetera, do you have any, since the president has declared this unclassified, and since the DNI, since the head of the CIA said there's nothing sensitive or nothing classified in these documents, we just want to make sure that you don't have specific objections to this kind of information going out in public. The White House issued us an anodyne statement late last night saying they think that some of this is sensitive and they would rather not have it out there, but there was no objections to specific details. We did redact one piece of information because we felt on our own that we felt it was best to do, and the CIA asked us. But, at a certain point, the administration is saying that there's nothing classified or secret or sensitive in these. So at a certain point, I just felt, let our readers decide for themselves. Read these texts that I got.
Nothing should be classified anyway, but the whole thing. I have a whole thing on this, but this is, not about that.
Sitting in my car on my phone in a Safeway parking lot 2 hours before the attack launched. And you tell me if this seems like good operational security. And really, I really mean it. Let the readers decide.
Right. And Jonathan Lemire, two issues here. Of course, that Jeffrey was included on this. And there have been accusations made over the airwaves, I believe by Mike Waltz, that there was some sort of foul play on Jeffrey's part. I'd love Jeffrey to respond to that. But also the fact that this was on Signal is a big issue as well.
Yeah, so Jeffrey, let's start there. You've heard, President of the United States called you a sleazebag. Members of his top officials in his administration used similar terminology to describe you and your reporting here. So first, just respond.
See, the thing about this is that with what happened with COVID, which I think more people, they don't do real polling. So, and sometimes they don't do any polling, like they don't even bring up certain questions. But I think the majority of American people know that they got screwed over by the COVID response. Like most people have issues with it. Some people have issues with feeling like they got forced to get the vax and, maybe some health issues, whatever it is, right? There's this pushback towards that. And then there's the food prices. And then there's the dementia, Joe Biden being obviously unfit for office. And so they tapped into that. These fake truthers, like these fake, of course they tapped into the right-wing aspect of that, which is the worst one because it's not real truth, because those people have always believed this stuff about some sort of, deep state and whatever name you call it. And so Elon Musk became the arbiter of truth and, not censoring and things and fighting back in the Twitter files and all this stuff, which, made him sort of a hero in the this alternative media community and all these things. And there's this sense that, we're on your side, but they're not, right? And now you see that they're, just kind of worse in some ways. And they're more emboldened because they think they've taken down all the credibility of the media, which, the media took its own credibility down. But now you're getting into a point where the media is going to win back people because you're on the wrong side of these things and you're pushing for censorship and you're not taking responsibility for your failures. And, the food prices are going to go back up and Trump's policies are a disaster. And so this is where, you've ended up screwing all of us in the alternative media community and the truthers because you pretend to be one of us and you're not. And now, like, people are lost. They don't know where to go, right? Because now they have to go back and, Morning Joe becomes relevant because this is actually real news. This is them covering this, without exaggeration. I mean, a little bit, not in this particular piece, but, they don't have to. They don't have to embellish or exaggerate because you've really fucking stepped in it, right?
To respond to that, and we'll go from there.
Well, I mean, it's kind of rude. First, they invite me to their Signal chat, and then they call me names. That doesn't seem right. Yeah, and
you just go look at this guy sideways. Like, that's how bad this is, right? Where they get to do this.
I've seen these. I mean, I get it. Mike Waltz is looking for the real killer. You know, the simple truth of the matter is on March 11th, Mike Waltz sent me a message request on Signal, and I accepted it. That's the entire story. I mean, there's no daring do here. I entirely passively accepted his request to connect on Signal. I'm not going to comment on my relationship with Mike Waltz. He's been saying unserious and unkind things about me. That's okay. But you know, the story is the story.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously then he's saying that Mike Waltz and him have communicated. So it didn't come in as, well, this is an unknown sender. That they had each other, they had the ability to call and message each other. That's what he's saying. Like Mike Waltz saying that it was somebody else's contact information, but his number. Well, he had his number. Like what I can glean from what he's saying here is that he got a message from Mike Waltz saying, "Do you want to join a Signal group?" Right? And he's like, "Well, sure." Since you're, administration person, he didn't know what the group was. He said he thought it was a joke and a hoax at first, and so, but he had Mike Waltz. He didn't like it. Didn't was like unknown sender, like So I mean, he could actually show all that kind of stuff. I think if he took screenshots.
March 11th, he reached out. March 13th, I'm added to the Houthi PC small group. March 15th, they announced to the small group before the attack occurs that the attack is occurring and what weapons they're using. And then I began the process of writing up what I thought was a story about a massive security breach at the highest levels of the United States government. That's the story.
Yeah, it is a massive security breach, although I think the one positive here is that readers can decide for themselves. There is...
Really? Is that what you were about, like, Mika? Remember, I should show the meme. I'm not going to. Let me just show the meme. The meme of her saying, Trump thinks it's his job to tell everyone what to think, and that's our job.
The dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts. And it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think. And that is our job. Okay. So as you can see, you won't see us spinning here on Morning Joe at all.
So the big problem here, this is a war of perception. I've said this before, that this idea, the InfoWars idea, of course, Alex Jones being this horrible shill, but this idea that if you wake everybody up, you could somehow fix the system is a lie. It's a good thing you don't wake everybody up, because if you woke everybody up, everyone would realize we're fucked. I mean, if you truly woke everybody up, you'd realize the economy is completely upside down. It's a debt-based economy. It wasn't supposed to go this long. It's a short-lived thing, these Ponzi schemes, anything that's a grift. It's illusionary, but they made debt as wealth, and then they made it into a thing where everybody just accepted it. Not just the monopoly money, but everything, the derivatives market of all these derivatives markets and all these other things. Betting against bad debt. I mean, they've made all these like little mini scams on top of the big scam, right? And they've made, quadrillion dollars worth of fake debt-based wealth. Debt-based assets. When debts are supposed to be liabilities, they're now considered assets, which is this upside-down economy. But then there's the morality and the idiocracy and all these things. And so, for me, the idea is simple, that you have to connect with the divinity within you, and you have to shed all your addictions to this demonic system and get back to, being the natural God, the divinity that's within you, embracing the divinity within you and becoming that natural best version of yourself, the soul within, the pure expression of your soul, which nobody really is. But in terms of everyone else, this is a debate between there's a good guy and there's a bad guy, and they're always trying to tell you the other guy's the bad guy and they're the good guy. And Trump, by doing what he's doing here, is becoming the bad guy for more and more people. To his diehard supporters, they're going to do whatever they're going to do. But the rest of us, we all can see what's going on here. And this is where it gets really kind of ridiculous.
Well, the one positive here, and this is the purpose of journalism, because it's like we discovered something the government was doing that was wrong and dangerous, and they could have responded by saying, "Yeah, we shouldn't have been on signal. We won't do it again."
Right.
That would have been an easy way to deal with this.
It would have been a lot easier than the way they're dealing with it now, because they have a lot of different conflicting stories that they're putting out there. Also, I think trying to defame your character to an extent, and I take issue with that.
Just stop, Mika.
Jonathan, on top of it, they're using an unsecured commercial app.
The unsecured commercial app on phones that themselves potentially could be vulnerable. Jeffrey, let's get you to respond, if we could, to real
Trump said it might be a device, right?
Time, the White House press secretary Karen Leavitt just posted. She took a screenshot of the Atlantic headline, which reads, I will say again for the viewers, here are the attack plans that Trump advisors shared on Signal. She writes this: the Atlantic has conceded these were not, quote, war plans. The entire story was another hoax written by a Trump hater, yada, yada. So, Jeffrey.
So they called them in the headline attack plans. Let's listen to that again. So the fake Barbie truther, like, this is how immature they are. That's a thing a child would say, right? I mean, that's how dumb they think the American people are. That's how dumb they think their supporters are, the people that believe in them. That these weren't, now it's the difference between being war plans or attack plans.
War plans. The entire story was another hoax written by a Trump hater, yada, yada. So, Jeffrey, does this seem like they're parsing the difference between a war plan and an attack plan?
I don't even know what that means. I mean, the plain language in the text is, well, yeah, what are they arguing? That an attack is different than a war? They put operational details of a forthcoming attack on a terrorist organization into Signal, into a Signal chat that included phone numbers that they didn't recognize. I don't even understand what that means. They're talking about attacking and killing terrorists using various weapon systems. So she's just playing some sort of weird semantic game.
Wait, are you saying Carolyn Leavitt is anti-semantic? I waited all day to make that joke. When I first heard this thing.
I don't understand.
So let's talk about those texts a little further. And as you say, you're allowing readers to decide for themselves what they mean. But just walk us through some of the texts you saw there from particularly the Secretary of Defense and then later the National Security Advisor about the operation that day in Yemen.
Right. Look, the key thing here is, this is an interesting one you have up on the screen.
Wait, so let's go back to that. Let me just read this here, and then he'll talk about it. VP, so he's talking about J.D. Vance. Building collapse, had multiple positive ID. Pete, Carilla, and the IC, amazing job. J.D. Vance, what? Typing too fast. Michael Waltz. The first target, their top missile guy, we had a positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and it's now collapsed. Okay, so this is an apartment, and J.D. Vance is excellent. These are supposed to be Christians and good men. And so no one else is going to cover this. I mean, I doubt anybody else will. But he said walking into his girlfriend building. Now, is his girlfriend a Houthi as well? Or what about all the other people in that building? So he's going to visit his girlfriend's house, and they bombed that house. And they're saying they had a positive ID on him. But we know from the Biden administration when they were supposedly going after those ISIS-K guys, which is all bullshit stuff, which I've covered. And they killed 8 kids and 12 people total, 12 civilians, and 8 of them were kids. And so how many kids were in that building? I mean, these are people. Like, these are humans that you just dropped a bomb on. And, that's a big fuck you to all of us as well, because anything that's done to, by us as by the U.S. or any country can be done to you. We have bombs dropping on our, random missiles and things and drones and shit flying around, droning people. And there's going to be collateral damage. It's going to be, oh my God, all these innocent people died. And so him saying excellent, like, this is just a, complete dick move, right? But, this guy's reading all this reporter, like, this is the other part of the story. But, first of all, the building. They collapsed the building with God knows how many people there. What were the casualties? 40 people in a building, apartment building? How many people? How many apartments? Let's say there were just 6 apartments You know, there's like a building, you know, even two. You know, who was in the other apartment, right? How many people died? How many pets died? How many animals died? You know, this kind of thing. Excellent, right? For, you know, a non-existent threat. Like he himself was arguing against this in the first place. He said that isn't that much traffic going through there. They weren't even sure this was the right course of action. Trump isn't even involved in this discussion, right?
Key thing here is, this is an interesting one you have up on the screen. This is Mike Waltz in a commercial messaging app, providing real-time intelligence updates about the consequences of an American attack. Obviously, there's a challenge here for secrecy, because if you know this, the question then arises, how do they know this, and what kind of assets do they have, technical or human assets that would know that? But the
So what he's saying is there's exposing possible spies on the ground. You know, people who are reporting back what's happening. So they know that they have people there. Of course, they probably know already, but, you know, I mean, this could make that worse, right? That's why you wouldn't want this information out there.
Core of this chain is the statement, is the long text issued by Pete Hegseth 2 hours before the first bombs fell in Yemen. Everybody can find it on the Atlantic website now, in which he goes hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute. Here's what's going to happen. And the thing that really struck me as I'm, again, reading this on my phone in a Safeway parking lot, the thing that really struck me is that he's telling me and others that an attack hasn't even begun yet, but the planes are launching in 31 minutes. You know, like, imagine this text went to someone else. I mean,
all right, there's a guy out there who's fixing the furnace. The dog started barking. Let's get back to it here.
If that's not...
Go back a little bit here.
Safeway parking lot. The thing that really struck me is that he's telling me and others that an attack hasn't even begun yet, but the planes are launching in 31 minutes. You know, like, imagine this text went to someone else. I mean, if that's not secret, classified information.
Launch first strike package.
About, or the most sensitive kind of government information in the world.
You're using his caps. I'll share the whole thing in a second here.
I don't know what is. I mean, if Caroline Levitt is arguing that it's not a war because Congress didn't declare war on Yemen, okay, fine. She wants to play a semantic game. But this is
anti-semantic.
Operational details about a forthcoming attack on an enemy that has anti-aircraft capabilities. They've allegedly shot down our drones before. So why you would tell anyone in the world on a messaging app that American pilots are about to fly into a, sorry for the expression, war zone, that's an interesting question.
All right. Let me go to here. I want to go to these things here. Godspeed to our warriors. You know, the issue here is they've dealt with this as immaturely and as badly as you possibly could, right? Because they think their shit doesn't smell, right? This is like classic community narcissistic behavior, that they think they're the greatest, they're the best, they believe Trump's rhetoric, and they're so limited and so immature that they can't believe they've made a mistake of this magnitude. And they don't know how to deal with it, right? Because there's no adults in the room. It's amateur hour, and it's, it's chaotic, and Trump brings chaos. And he, when somebody is a complete fraud, right, and you call them on being a fraud, and you ask them some questions when they're bullshitters. I used to have this with my brother, who's like a good bullshitter. He's not Trump-esque, but similar type of things. And someone's just talking shit, and they don't have real facts. They don't have real knowledge of a subject, but they're a good storyteller, and they're good at, they have charisma. They have this kind of thing that Trump has. And you ask them some questions, and they don't have the answers for it, and they go on the attack. Like they're mad at you for asking the question, and they feel like you're attacking them when you're even if you actually believe in what they're saying, or you just want more information, and you ask them, and they don't have the information, and they think it's a got you question. You probably have experiences with people like this, where you ask a legitimate question, and the person feels like you're attacking them. And so this isn't about liberal media, isn't about this guy, isn't about the Atlantic. It's about them fucking up and how you deal with a fuck up. And the way they're dealing with it should cause everybody concern. I mean, the Trumpers are oblivious because they're a part of this group think that they're right. And, they just, this idea that, hey, if we do things our way, it's going to go our way, and, all these things, right? Like, they think that's way. They think they're, that they're something special. And, well, my God, we do so many things right, and the one time we do something wrong, you guys are, but why did you say how good our strike went, right? So, like, it's just silly. Like, you've made a huge mistake, and every military person, Tulsi Gabbard's up there knowing that this is a complete fuck up, and she's got to eat shit in front of this congressional committee and all these people. And I'll show you some of these dopes on the Democratic side. They're trying to make the most of it. Mark Warner, I'm not even going to show, he's hard to listen to, but they bring Mark Warner in, which, he sucks. Like, he's horrible. And just everything that he stands for and how he presents himself. But, this is a fucking mess, right? Because as bad as this mistake is, the way they're handling it shows complete incompetence. And for Karen Levitt to say this immature thing, saying, no, it's not a war. It's just a, whatever the name of the thing here, the attack plans. It's not a war plan. It's an attack plan. It's like silly. Like, what are you talking about? That's what little kids do when you're arguing with them, right? Like, it's childish. And so, like said this a couple weeks ago, whatever thought there was that Trump was some kind of genius, some kind of savant, he had the ability to do some common sense type of stuff, business sense, and bring in common business sense and getting rid of some of this Washington, D.C. bullshit, bureaucracy, and, and that he was going to be playing 5D chess. That should have went out the window years ago. And, of course, for me, it was, as I always knew Trump was a chucklehead, but the way he went out with COVID, the way he got worked on COVID, I knew he was a complete tool. Because they were baiting him into doing certain things, and they forced him to wear a mask. They got him to close down the economy. And then he got baited into doing Operation Warp Speed. Bill Gates said it would take 2002 before the first vax came out. He said that Trump's, pushing it was, he didn't agree with that. And so even Bill Gates was, he was, he's one of the biggest vax guys out there. And he was saying his projections were too soon. But, by the beginning of 2021, they had the thing ready to go because Trump pushed the Operation Warp Speed, and they bypassed a variety of various testing on it. And then Biden was putting in mandates in 2021. By 2022, COVID had disappeared. It had mutated itself out of existence, and so it made the mandates, the mandates wouldn't have been there. And so, maybe it's a good thing that happened because they won't be able to get away with it a second time. Who knows how this will go a second time, and who knows how this is all going to play out in the future. But, Trump he got worked and he fucked the whole thing up, the whole COVID thing up. And then the way he handled January 6th and his loss and all the stuff leading up to that. And then everything he's done the past 3 years and whining and complaining how he's being targeted even though they never truly get the guy. And so, it's just all a mess. And Trump's an actual idiot. But any thought that anybody else had that Trump was going to work some magic in his second term with his bullshit tariffs and his goofy immigration policies and now all these war things he's doing is, complete farce. Like, he's an idiot. Like, he's just an idiot. He's a moron, and he's hired a bunch of morons, and they're feeling emboldened to just go full moron, and that's what they're doing. And this is an indication. As bad as the leak was, it's showing how they handle it. Like the guy said, you come out and say, you could even blame, we're using a Biden Signal app. We shouldn't have done it. We made a mistake by doing that. It was being used by Biden. And so now we've learned our lesson, and we made a mistake here by using our phones, and, we're not going to do that anymore. I mean, the guy admits it's embarrassing. So just go and lean into that. Don't get into the whole thing about how great you're doing, and you don't have to fucking do that. I mean, you don't have to, in fact, it creates the opposite effect. It seems like you're not taking responsibility. Just go in there, say, we fucked up, somebody gets fired, you move on. A week later, it'll be something else, right? And so they've made this thing so much worse. Everything they've done has made this worse. So here we go. Here are the attack plans. This is the Atlantic story from today. Jeffrey Goldberg and Shane Harris, Trump advisors shared on Signal. The administration has downplayed the importance of the text messages inadvertently sent to the Atlantic's chief editor-in-chief. So, which was a huge, let me just say this, too, before we get into this. And so, they're blame people, right? They blamed Biden. Trump is always blaming somebody. Trump, I grew up in Connecticut, close to, New York City. And New York City was a part of my existence, not close to it, but Connecticut's a small state, so 2 hours away. And my brother was a big Trump fan. And, Trump was somebody I knew about and saw things about him. And, Connecticut, they allowed these Native American tribes, this one Native American tribe, to have casinos. And Trump was getting his ass kicked by these casinos for whatever reason. He had Atlantic City casinos. And he was arguing that these people weren't real Indians, weren't real Native American people, the same way he did with Elizabeth Warren. He's like, they're not any Indians I ever saw. You could tell he was racist as fuck. I mean, just from everything. And, and part of him was hilarious, but he was always very petty. He had his multiple failures. And in the boardroom on his show, they would do a competition, and whoever lost, they would just play the blame game, and Trump loved it. Like the whole, throwing each other on the bus and talking about how the other person sucked and, why the other person should be fired and not them, and they would go at it. And you could see Trump loved this kind of thing. Like he did it in the debates with Hillary Clinton, very petty, because there are people who look for external validation to justify, because deep inside they think they're a piece of shit, right? Most of the people who are really successful in the material world have to have a major chip on their shoulder. They have narcissistic wounding, as they call it. And they've been told their whole life they're a piece of shit. And, I was alluding to this a little bit in my video. I'm going to put an audio on the end of this video from my Journey series and a standalone video about some comments people are writing about Sajmarg books they're reading, these things. And my own, perception about this. And this idea of doing things out of a sense of duty or out of a sense of competition. When I first had this YouTube channel, I was going through a divorce. And I wanted to prove, I was the one, I wanted to win the divorce, whatever it is. There's this element where people have this, you want to do better than the other person kind of thing because it's so contentious and you want to, not be the one to blame. But, as time has passed, none of that shit means anything to me. There's no competition. People who are competitive, people who look for external validation, looks for thumbs up, looks for money, looks for awards, looks for, things they can say, hey, look, I have this degree or I have this award or I have this Porsche or I have this whatever it is, right? Look how many likes I have. Look at how many views I have. And, aside from bots and any number of things, even if it's all real people, who knows why people hit the like button, right? And who knows if it's justified. And so as you develop into a more mature person, and if you're a spiritual person, you have to just be asking yourself, you have to be, have some sort of a system to make sure you're making the right choice, that you're right with God, you're right with your soul, and you're doing the thing that you're supposed to do. And, you have to evaluate that and when something happens, if there's a mistake you make or something doesn't go your way. But, sometimes you're not meant to win. Winning and losing and, you're going to die. Like that's, ultimately you're losing. Like if your whole thing is about living a happy life and, enjoying life and, not dying, right? Then dying is like a loss, right? Dying's you end up, it's all ends in the sense of the failure. When people say they're going to beat cancer, well, you're not going to beat death, right? And so it's like, if you don't beat cancer, you're a loser. Like, you know, what this whole, it's just crazy thinking, right? It's a very American thing, very competitive. And also thinking that you're the doer. And that's the other thing about the Sajmark system. The idea is that you and God are working together and your soul, and you're not the doer. It's not me, I, look at what I did. Without your soul, you don't live. Without God, there's no you, there's no anything. And so, you know, there's always understanding that you're a part of something bigger, and that you're a cog in the wheel to some extent. You have, some sovereignty, some individuality, but without God, you're nothing, right? So there are people who are just big ego people, and lots of them, especially in America, who everything's about wins and losses and, all these things and being better. And Trump is one of those people. And Trump wants to be judged. Well, he doesn't want to be judged, but he wants to judge others on their performance. And to say Joe Biden is the worst president in history, and say Biden and these people did all these horrible things, Hillary Clinton, all this stuff with the intelligence things. And, Trump is like, well, they went after me for, my classified documents, but they didn't go after Biden and Hillary, and what they did was worse and all these things, right? And if you're a blame game, finger-pointing person, which Trump is, and all these people are, and they never, they just can't stop talking about Joe Biden and how they can't keep Joe Biden and his failed administration out of their mouth, right? Because this idea that a mistake was made, that Trump didn't really lose the election, and, there wasn't anything that Trump did to fuck himself, right? One of my wife's friends who was a, Republican said she couldn't vote for Trump. Like, she saw Trump saying things and doing things that were going to sabotage his chance to win against Biden. And she was pissed at him because he did these things that he didn't have to do. And if he didn't do those things, in her mind, he would have won, right? And so a lot of these things are out of your hand. And mistakes you're going to make. Or, sometimes things are going to be seen as failures and mistakes, but if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you say, well, I don't think this was a mistake at all. And everyone else is saying, no, you look at you piece of shit, you made a mistake. I mean, it's a fucked up thing that our whole media and our whole social media now is about how we're always condemning each other as being pieces of shit who failed. For me, it isn't about personal failure that these people do. It's their ideology and the reason they fail. Because they're on the wrong track. They're doing the wrong thing. They're going about life for the wrong reason. They don't have a true purpose or sense of, if your sense of is to grab more shit for yourself and to, to whatever it is, money or whatever it is, and like to stuff in your ghoul hole, and you need to be fed because you got this void inside of you, and you're dishonest about everything that you do, and you're willing to lie, cheat, and steal for success, and you're willing to hurt other people to aggrandize yourself or whatever, then, you're a piece of shit. Like you've just failed. It isn't like the mistakes you're making. It's your whole reason for being. It's who you are. And you're not learning from your mistakes. You're not learning. Like God's sending you feedback. Everyone's getting feedback. Everyone's getting, information sent to them. And they just don't respond to it. So, Trump and these guys are very big in blaming. And so when you have a fuck up like they did, when you screw up like they did, there's just one way to handle it, which is to say, yes, the signal is a mistake. Even if it was a Biden thing, you say, well, you can even throw a little shade on Biden and say, they used it before us and we should have known better. You say why it was a mistake. You say how the mistake happened. Somebody has to be held accountable. And again, nobody should be fired if these guys are really good at their jobs and their, Trump administration is humming. But they're not, right? And they're just grifting and bragging and pretending they're having more success than they are. And deep down, they know that they suck. Deep down, that's why people who have a lot of bravado, a lot of bragging, braggadocious, telling you how great they are, they have an inner voice that's telling them the exact opposite. And so they have to say these things because they're so insecure and they're so, the bigger the front, the bigger the back is something my brother used to always say. And my brother was someone with a big front, right? Someone who, they have to claim all these things, and there's some part of them believes that they're evil or they're a piece of shit. These personality disorders, the borderline personality disorder, the people who have borderline personality feel like they're evil inside, and so they're combating that. And then when you see them as you criticize anything that they're doing, they have this they think you're saying they're evil, And maybe you are, because they do evil shit. It's just a weird thing that happens. But then they get duplicitous about it and they melt down. You see this with Trump and, the narcissistic personality disorder, all these other ones, where they are so fragile inside they can't take any kind of criticism, especially when it's deserved. Because, this mistake that was made, it's a mistake, but it means so much more to these guys who are wanting to believe that there's something special when they're not. And, they know they're stupid. They know that they're immature. They know they're remedial on a deeper level. But on a superficial level, they've convinced themselves and they have this self-talk that they're saying. And so, when this thing went down, it confirmed their worst insecurities, especially as a group. And then they're taking heat all the time from the media and the left and then, other people. People are, and they know they've done bullshit things like fake an assassination attempt. They know that they've had to do bullshit, evil shit to as part of their, they're doing dirty tricks. They're doing bad shit, right? And so when this stuff comes up, they fall apart. It's an indication that they're just lost. It's not only amateur hour, but these people are psychologically unhealthy and they're weak and pathetic. And, the inevitable failures and mistakes they're going to have, they can't take responsibility for them. They can't even admit they had one. Like, they're just so locked up inside. They're so insecure. They're so weak. They're so pathetic. They can't even deal with something like, okay, because, it was a mistake by one guy, really. And then the decision to use Signal. But now everything that they believe about themselves, they're trying to sell to you, is at question. These are the kind of things where they would get violent, when they're confronted with their bullshit, right? And where they snap and things like this. And this is their rhetoric is violent rhetoric to go after all these people and then try to change the words and the meaning of the words and any way you take responsibility. But the guy said it's embarrassing. And so go with that. Go with it's embarrassing. Because if you just admit to it and then, name the problem, name what went wrong, take some accountability, maybe somebody gets fired, that would probably be best, and then move on, and there'll be something else in a couple of weeks with the news cycle. But the way they've dealt with this, it just fucking keeps on getting worse. Just like with the Baldwins. The Baldwins fit into this category. And so let's get into it here. Okay. So apparently the chat, and I don't know if this is the whole thing here, but the Atlantic makes you do a subscription. But this is CNN. They have it here. Team establishing a principals group for coordination on the Houthis, particularly over the next 72 hours. My deputy, Alex Wong, is putting together a tiger team. A tiger team. Team of tigers. This is a tiger team. They're tigers. They're not pussies. They're tigers. As deputy's agency chief of staff level following up from the meeting in the sit room this morning for the action items. I'll be sending that out later this evening. Please provide the best staff POC from your team for us to coordinate with over the next couple of days and over the weekend. This is Mike Needman for State, Andy Barker for VP, J.D. Vance, this guy T, whatever, Joe Kent for DNI. This is all the stuff, right? These are all the people. Pete Hegg says Dan Caldwell for DOD. So he gives them, these are the contact people. Team, you should have a statement of conclusion with taskings per the president guidance this morning in your high side inboxes. State and DOD, we developed suggested notification list for regional allies and partners. Joint staff is sending this in a more specific sequence of events. In the coming days, we will work with the DOD to ensure all these things, POTUS, are briefed. J.D. Vance, team, I am out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we are making a mistake. 3% of the U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of the European trade does. There is a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this, as POTUS said, is to send a message, but I'm not sure the president is aware of how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. What she's saying that they're doing Europe's bidding because they have 40% of their trades going through this Suez Canal, but the UN is only 3%, and so this is doing an American military action to support Europe, which is Trump's against. She says it, but I'm not sure the president is aware this is a good thing. I'm not sure the president is aware. This is a truthful statement because nobody, he's not. How inconsistent this message is on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing this messaging on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc. So this is Joe Kent, who I believe is the guy in charge of the CIA. So here it is, the Signal chat, Houthi PC. So these are, high-level administrators. And they say this guy, Kent, and Kent Gabbard's acting chief of staff. So this is Tulsi Gabbard's chief of staff, this guy, Kent. So going back to this one here, him saying that Trump isn't aware of the fact this is only 3% of the trade goes for U.S. So it's an unnecessary bombing of people, right? This is support of Israel because the Houthis, and this is against Iran. Like, this is war with Iran and, supporting Israel. I mean, there's this picture I have. I believe it's right here. Maybe it's, no, here it is right here. This is just the astronauts coming down. So that's whatever. I'll get rid of that. But this one right here, democracy has been established in Syria. This is the former, that's Assad and his wife. And so that's what happens when you do regime change. And this is Israel doing this to Syria so they can weaken Syria. And so they had this, and now they have this. So, he's saying all this stuff about Trump, but Trump's probably getting his orders from Israel. So Joe Kent, this has nothing to do with America. Only 3% of our trade's going through the Suez Canal. They're probably doing minimal to no damage to the U.S., and they're just doing this to support Israel and maybe to some extent Europe, but probably not Europe. There's nothing time-sensitive driving the timeline. We'll have the exact same options in a month. The Israelis will likely take strikes and therefore ask us for more support to replenish whatever they use against the Houthis, but that's a minor factor. I will send you the unclassed data we pulled on BAM shipping. There's what I'm saying, that this is about Israel. So Israel's going to do strikes and then expect us to give them weapons to replenish their store. This is John Ratcliffe, this head of the CIA. From a CIA perspective, we are mobilizing assets to support now, but a delay would not negatively impact us, and additional time would be used to identify better starting points for the coverage on Houthi leadership. So again, everybody is saying it's okay to wait. And they could have waited, and that might have changed everything. So there's no reason to go forward with this. It's not as important as they're saying it is. But then this clown comes in, Pete Hegseth. I haven't read this yet, but I know he's going to override it. I understand your concerns and fully support you raising with POTUS important considerations, most of which are tough to know how they play out. Economy, Ukraine, peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be a tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we would need to stay focused. Biden failed. 1, Biden failed. 2, Iran funded. This is what they're going to have to focus on to convince people this is a good idea. Waiting a week or a month does not fundamentally change the calculus. 2 immediate risks on waiting. This leaks, and we could look indecisive. Well, you are indecisive. It has leaked in the worst possible way. This is great. Israel takes action first, or Gaza ceasefire falls apart, and we don't get to the starting on this on our own terms. We can manage both. We are prepared to execute. If I had final go or no-go vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis. I see this as 2 things: restoring freedom of navigation, a core national interest, and reestablishing deterrence, which Biden cratered. This is about Biden, because he's already said only 3% of this canal is used for America. So we almost do nothing there. But this is about showing that they're going to do things Biden didn't, which will always play with Trump. Like him saying this, Trump would say, yeah, go ahead and do it. Plus, Israel told them to do it. But we can easily pause, and if we do, I will do all I can to enforce 100% OPSEC. I welcome our thoughts. I welcome other thoughts. Michael Wells, the trade figures we have are 15% of global and 30% of container. It's difficult to break that down to U.S. specific because much of the container either going through the Red Sea still or around the Cape of Good Hope are components going to Europe that turns into manufactured goods for transatlantic trade for the United States. Whether we pull the plug or not today, European natives do not have the capability to defend against this types of sophisticated anti-ship cruise missiles and drones the Houthis are now using. So whether it's now or several weeks from now, it will have to be the United States that reopen these shipping lanes. Per the President's request, we are working with the DOD and state to determine, have to compile the costs associated and levy them on the Europeans. So this is about messaging and some of these other things. To Pete Hegseth, V.D. Vance, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. I mean, this is bad. Let's just make sure. I mean, this is going out to you. Like, they're reading this shit, right? It makes us look like chuckleheads. So this should not leak because the shit they're saying in here, regardless of whether it's classified or not, this is shit where they don't want people. He doesn't want the European leaders to hear what he just said, right? Any of the stuff they're saying here, it's like having a private conversation where you say things that you expect to stay private and then it goes public. So this is bad. Like the stuff that's being they're focusing on is the stuff that's classified. But this is the embarrassing stuff here. And it makes them look like amateur hour because this should never get out, right? And this is like a hot mic gone, like, nuclear. Let's just make sure our messaging is tight here. And if there are things we can do up front to minimize risks to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. Again, there's no president here. And even his chief of staff isn't commenting. So this is being 100% decided by J.D. Vance, by Pete Hegseth, and by Mike Waltz and the guy in charge, the CIA guy, this guy up here, whatever his name is, the Scarborough guy or whatever. And so it's really bad. And so team update, now time weather is favorable, just confirms so kind of a good go for mission. And they're saying we're launching the F-18s, and there are all these things that he's saying they're doing. And so this is stuff where, Godspeed to our warriors, we are currently clean on OPSEC, which means there's security, and they're not. So he said this thing, and that didn't happen. And so I will say a prayer for victory. Okay, because you're praying for victory? You're praying for God that you fucking kill innocent people and shit in these apartment buildings? And then this is the VT building collapse, had multiple positive ID. Pete Carrilla and IC, amazing job. What? Typing too fast. This is the first target, the top missile guy. We had positive ID walking into his girlfriend's building is now collapsed. Excellent. Fist, flag, fire. Good job, Pete, and your team. The team in Mal did a great job as well. Great work, all. Powerful start. Sitcom is point. Great job, all. More strikes ongoing for hours tonight, and we'll provide full initial report tomorrow. But on time, on target, and good readout so far. Kudos to all. Most particularly those in the theater and CENTCOM. Really great. God bless. Couple of prayer hands, big bicep, couple of flags. They look like such amateurs here. Great works and effects. And that's when the guy got out, right? So the guy, this is bad. And it could have went on. The guy could have stayed in there and listened to more of this bullshit. And them celebrating the deaths of these people. And so he could have actually fucked them more. So whatever they want to say, like they got off lucky that the guy, he clicked out of the chat. And then when he clicked out, somebody said, Susan Wiles, I think that's, where is this thing? Who is Susan Wiles? Is that Trump's chief of staff? White House Chief of Staff Susan Wiles. So that's the only thing that she says, and Trump's opinions aren't being present. They made the decision without Trump. And so Trump said something like, let's go after the Houthis. So they came up with a plan, and Walsh went in there, and they're talking about it. Now, he was supposed to invite somebody, he didn't. And he didn't say who that was, but I wonder if it's Trump, because he seems to be the only big name missing here. Or Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know who it was, right? But somebody's missing here. And so, and he said that he had somebody's name, he invited that person, but he gave the phone number was to this reporter. Megyn Kelly, happily married to Doug, who seems a little bit on the gay side. Crazy in love with my children, Yates, Yardley, and Thatcher, journalist. She is trying to reinvent herself as one of these right-wing truthers. And she, the way she went after the shill Alex Jones on MSNBC, even working for MSNBC. And now she's like free, like all these people who are, realizing they can have freedom and have their own private audience without answering to a handler or whatever, if they don't have one. But she's really annoying. And I want to see, this video came up where she's, let me show you the video here. I want to see what Matt Taibbi says, because he's somebody I have more respect for.
Let's get to the news.
Okay, so let's get to the news. There's a filter on here and a filter on here. Like there's some, this is, you can see. So she's not like, this is a dishonest.
And the drama over the Signal group chat. Now, you heard this story yesterday, right? The long and the short of it is a group of Trump's top security officials, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor.
No BS, no agenda, no fear. Come on. Total BS, total agenda. And she is a very fear-based person. You hear it in her voice, right?
And J.D. Vance, our vice president, and others were on a group text chain that I think involved 19 people in total. And Mike Walls appears to have been the one, though not totally confirmed, who added... He
confirmed it by now.
Clearly accidentally, the Atlantic editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, who's just, of all people to add, just the worst person. You know how many stories he's gotten wrong? Let me.
Okay, so let's make this about him. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, they're a fucking disaster. And any piece of shit that's not willing to admit there's a possibility that Trump faked his assassination, which is it's not even saying a possibility, because if you're a truther, you should be able to nail that one. Like it's so fucking fake. But if you're floating this idea out there, then you're part of the problem. Like, you're not, and everything else with Trump. Like the guy, you got to get beyond this idea that there are bad guys and good guys, and one side's better than the other. So you have to vote and you have to support one side, and you flip-flop back and forth because you're looking for heroes, then there are none, right? Only devils.
Let me put it to you this way. He thinks that Mark Milley is a patriot and wrote a whole article calling him the patriot for his promise to betray the sitting president of the United States and to tell the Chinese if we ever decided to plan some attack on them. That would be treason. That would be punishable by death.
Okay, he's the word. Anybody who's making it about the reporter, because he's a random fuck, right? Unless it's intentional and staged, and who knows? Like, it's all whatever on some level. But if the official story is true, and some bonehead on Trump's team ended up leaking this thing to this reporter, the story isn't about the reporter, right? It has nothing to do with the reporter. It has to do with the leak and what's said in this chat. Because we now have access to something we shouldn't have. We're privy to a conversation that leaves Trump out of an important decision where they're applauding civilian deaths and they're, acting like chuckleheads, and they're kind of admitting that this thing didn't have to be done. They're full out admitting it didn't have to be done. And that Israel is pulling the puppet strings here.
It's not something that makes you a patriot unless you're Jeffrey Goldberg, and that's how you see that. And that's how you see all stories involving Trump or any Republican. So the fact that he got added is a nightmare. There are some people.
Yeah, which is a nightmare from them. Not from him, because he's not the story. It's that they added the worst possible guy, right?
People saying Mike Walls is a neocon. That's why he had Jeffrey Gold. Can I tell you, if you saw the people in my contacts, you wouldn't know what to think. You'd be so confused, because in Mike Walls' position as a guy who's been in politics forever, or in Jeffrey Goldberg's, frankly, you have a lot of contacts. You meet people, they give you their contact, you put it in there. You never know when you might need them, or you might need to yell at them. In Mike Walls' case with Goldberg, I don't think you can draw any conclusions from the fact that he had him in the contacts, and we don't know who he was trying to add.
Okay, the conclusion of the contacts or not, this is not the point. Like, she's shitting on, she's burying the lead, right?
But clearly, he made a mistake, and now the left is treating this like we had a nuclear meltdown as a result of inappropriate group messaging.
Okay, so again, this would be where you would the behavior that I always talk about. Like, if you're against the behavior, if this was Trump, you guys would be all over it. Like Trump, if this was Biden, you guys would be all over it. Now, Trump is looking for anything he can say about Biden. And Trump makes shit up. Like, Trump made shit up about Canada. Demonizing Canada, that was just bullshit about his own, saying that they negotiated a great deal against some buffoons in the past, and he was the buffoon. In the North American trade deal that he negotiated, he said it was the best deal ever. And then he brought up these bullshit tariff claims about the dairy tariffs that I already talked about this in the last two videos. And so Trump is just a bullshitter and a liar and a piece of shit, as is Biden and the rest of these guys. And so, when there is a fuck up like this is the job of the other side to say, wow, this is maximize the fuck up. And this is going to happen. So you can't fuck up like this. Like you said, they gave it to the worst person. Of course, any person would have been the worst. It was like giving it to Morning Joe or something. But no matter who they gave it to, it's not a small thing. This is a felony, right? It goes against national security. And as right-wing Republican warmongers, you guys should be all over this. Military people are big into the military. This should certainly bother you more than the left. But it isn't, because it's Trump, who you guys are carrying his fucking water for a guy who's just a complete moron and a clown, who was cut out of the decision-making, embarrassingly so.
On Signal. And I'll just start by saying this. If it were me, and I were the administration, I think I would have just said, we made a mistake. We'll look into how it happened and we'll let you know. Thank God nothing bad came out of it. And it was, on an encrypted channel, thank goodness. But sure, we can shore up our communications and will. And that's it. This is not Watergate. This is not the Pentagon Papers.
Okay, it is. Okay, Watergate was nothing. They broke into a building. It was the cover-up that made Watergate bad. Watergate was much less significant than this. A bunch of dopes broke into the building and, of a guy that they were going to landslide. The guy was only going to win one state. They were all paranoid. They were all, these were ex-CIA guys who were involved in the Kennedy assassination with the Cubans. This was like, what you would call deep state shit on something that was silly, and Nixon knew nothing about it. The people around him had very little accountability for any of it, and they were, Howard Dean, the lawyer, all these people. The only people that really should have been in trouble were the ones who broke in, and it was kind of their own stupid thing they were doing. It was the cover-up that killed them, and it's the reaction that's going to kill Trump, but Trump's thing is much worse. This is much worse. Using the Signal app for something that would expose, especially when they were just about to give Elon Musk the war plans for China. Like they've lost all sense of integrity and control over their bullshit, right? But let's get into Matt Taibbi here. Well,
people need to calm the F down. The mission they were discussing when we fought back.
Okay, so let's see what Matt Taibbi says. Because, if he says anything, then this was a disaster. It has nothing to do with anybody but Trump and his incompetence.
that of all people in the world, the journalist who is probably most hostile to Donald Trump was added to this chat chain about an attack on Yemen. It's so incredibly improbable that the circumstances of it need to be understood fully before we can properly assess it, I think. I mean, was it a genuine accident, or what else happened here? It just, something about it doesn't smell entirely kosher to me.
That's interesting. There is some speculation online, just on X, random folks posting. Is there any chance he was intentionally added as a means of getting a discussion, which didn't make anybody look bad? I think to the contrary, it made them all look very thoughtful.
Oh, it makes them look horrible. If that's thoughtful, they bombed an apartment building and we're celebrating it, right? And if they did that on purpose, what the fuck are they doing, right? Like, you think that they're doing this on purpose? They're already taking a beating for what they almost did with Elon Musk and what the terrorists are doing. You think this was a good idea to do this? Like, they're losing credibility left and right. They're an absolute fucking disaster. Like, that's the speculation that you think this is them playing chess. They left Trump at a decision. Trump isn't in the room, and he doesn't have the final decision. These guys are, J.D. Vance says, if the consensus is we should go, we'll go. So Trump turned this whole decision of this strike over to other people. So much so he wasn't even involved in the chat. He wasn't even getting he doesn't want to be bothered by shit, right? I mean, talk about Joe Biden and his auto-ped. I mean, Trump should be involved in this thing. If they were going to do this on purpose, they'd make Trump look good. Trump wants to be the decider. He wants to be the guy. I mean, is there any evidence of anything other than that? It's silly. And the way that they're reacting, I mean, it didn't look like the guy was reacting in a way like, oh man, we were doing this on purpose and we got him. Like that rhetoric, they're all triggered. They're all flipping the fuck out. I mean, if they did do this, they would be even stupider on purpose. But my God, this is like horrible discussion. Like, you guys,
and they're debating the pros and cons. And, is this something that we really want to take on? That's what JD was saying. Like, Europe has 40% of its commerce going through these channels. We have 3. Should it really be our problem? And then some exchange about, well, yeah, but
let's find out what Taibbi says here.
On Carter Page.
It's just like when she wouldn't say that it.
Yeah.
Other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans.
Senator, I don't want to get into this.
If it's not classified, share the text now. So you were the John Ratcliffe on that chat.
I was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I provide some context, Senator, to that?
Yes, but I've got a series of questions.
Well, but I think it's important because at the outset, you made a couple of comments about signal messaging using encrypted apps. So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Director Ratcliffe, I've got a series of questions. If you're making the statement, the signal is a secure channel.
To be clear, in a signal message group, were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. This is strangely familiar, and I think my colleagues remember when you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? Man, I have serious doubts about your...
I mean, this is the clown. They're all clowns. But for that guy to say it was there for Biden, you were undoing everything that Biden did. And, to blame this on him, like, you mishandled classified information, right? You invited this guy into the chat. And so, this is like, you don't have to go in this route, but you did. And now you're like making it much worse, like I said, by constantly talking about how bad Biden is when you fucked up, right?
Anyway.
It's just like when she wouldn't say that Edward Snowden is a traitor. This is just like that, Matt.
So it's incredibly humorous to watch Mark Warner talking about breaches of security when his own Senate Select Committee on Intelligence.
Yeah, this is the stuff they're saying. Again, totally missing the fucking point, right? Like, this is one thing that has to be addressed. And, Pete Hegseth should never have gotten this position because he's a fucked up guy. Like, he's fucked up psychologically and he's not qualified. And they're running a clown show over there because Donald Trump shouldn't be president. And again, Joe Biden was senile and had Parkinson's, and the people around him were horrible and they made horrible decisions. But they were people who have been trained to do this job, to do these dysfunctional jobs of this dysfunctional system. But you're bringing in all these outsiders who are dopes, and they're coming around with this swagger, like they have something, they're going to, rewrite all these things and they're going to change everything and, they're going to get rid of all this stuff and, without really knowing anything about it, not knowing how dysfunctional it is, right? As I've said this before, we have a system that's already dead, it's terminal, and you're beating the shit out of it, right? You're taking a baseball bat to a person who has 4 types of stage 4 cancer. Okay, some Fox News coverage here.
President Trump and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz hitting back against a bombshell report earlier today. The Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, was accidentally added to a group chat with Trump cabinet members on the encrypted app Signal. Goldberg claims he was privy to minute-by-minute war plans about strikes to take out Houthi terrorists in Yemen. Trump and Waltz reacting earlier.
Okay, so this is all this stuff here. They're saying they're fighting back, but there's nothing to fight back about. Again, the guy isn't the problem, regardless of who you gave this to. The problem is that you gave it to somebody, and you're using this third-party app, and you have your phones involved, which there's 2 possible data breach. Again, I don't give a shit about classified information. I don't give a shit about military stuff. I don't care. Fucking let it all out, right? I don't believe in secrets. I don't believe in it. But, it would bring down the system because, secrecy is and delusion and, misinformation is what's keeping this fucking system going. So, that's whatever it is. Like, that's, but I don't care. Like, I don't have some, oh my God, you let out national security secrets. Who gives a fuck, right? There's too much spying. There's too much, underhanded bullshit. But in terms of what they believe in and what they concern themselves, especially these people, these right-wing people who watch Fox News, this was mishandling of a potential act of war or, military operation in which American troops were put in harm's way, right? The guys flying the plane, if this information got out, those planes could have been shot down, and then that would have been, horrible. And so in all that, the Fox News response is to be dishonest, right? Which is always the case. They'd be doing the same thing on MSNBC and CNN if this was Biden. And it shows you how fucked we are, because what's the right thing to do here? Well, for Trump, it's just to take responsibility and then clean up the Signal thing, stop using it, and find a better way, right? And just take responsibility. Don't blame Biden. Don't do anything like this. Somebody gets fired, you move on, whatever. But they can't do that. They're so fucking dysfunctional. And then all the media surrounding it, and it's all, it's what I covered. It's just wasting energy and time, and spinning your wheels as the system slowly implodes around you. We're crumbling. Our system's crumbling around us, and we're all pretending like there's something else to see here, right?
The main thing was nothing
Let's
happened.
move forward here. We've already seen these 2 guys.
For the mishap.
I was shocked, and I was.
This used to be their guy. He used to be a regular on Fox News, like this guy, porn stash John Bolton, and he's a total neocon, and now he's over on CNN.
Without words.
Texting war plans, it is something we've never quite
Remember this? It's Brian Stilson.
Seen before. So simple, so easy, so sloppy.
Obviously reckless, obviously dangerous.
It would be comical if it wasn't so serious and so dangerous. It's in a completely...
I got a funny thing from her. I'll show that next.
reckless disregard for protocol.
Just shocking.
This sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect.
I got this guy too. He's the total douche.
It is so stunning and so incompetent and so dangerous. My guess is that this is probably the tip of the iceberg.
What should happen here? Should we be saying lock them up?
And even Hillary Clinton is fuming over the story, saying, "You've got to be kidding me." Jesse, I like the way the president handled it, because I think on something like this, just take it head on, deal with it, and say that obviously he's talking.
He didn't do any of those fucking things. He put it on Mike Walsh. He talked a little bit, and he deflected. He didn't take the questions. He didn't make a statement about it. He went to Mike Walsh immediately, who went on the attack. And then Trump on attack, and Trump bragged about how great he is and his administration is and how bad Biden is. And he demonized Biden. And no, he didn't do any of the things that you're saying.
Talk to everybody in the room, and maybe we need a new way to communicate in the government. Perhaps Elon Musk can help them with that. But I noted that somebody brought up yesterday, Eric Swalwell is calling on these guys to resign. I'm not sure if that's the best messenger after his troubles.
They sleep with spies. They let spies drive him around. They keep...
Okay, so that's your thing. Like, if you guys were real patriots and real Republicans and real warmongers, real pro-military, you would not tolerate this. If this was Biden, you'd want Biden to resign, right? You'd want everybody gone. And so, like, just silly. I want to show you guys a couple of clips from, one clip that I got off my TV, and then the other one, these are liberal Democrats going nuts and losing it. Like I said, they're freaking out and like they're losing it over Trump's destruction of the country, which is, probably the most entertaining thing. That's been what I've been covering lately, but then this bombshell was dropped, right? And so you see with Fox News here, and it's what Morning Joe used to do with Joe Biden, the whole liberal, all the media does this, right? This is why media sucks, because you're not looking for truth. When you pick a side and you're, demonizing one side and you're celebrating the other side, in a binary system where everybody sucks, then when something happens, you have to look at your brand. Your brand as a person on the internet, as a media person, is to say that Democrats are bad and the Republicans are good. Trump is good and Biden's bad, or Biden's good and Trump's bad. So whatever your brand is. And then you frame your opinion of what you just saw based in these prejudice and your, what your audience expects from you. And, they're coming to look to you to reassure them that Trump isn't the piece of shit that he appears to be, right? And so, like, this is what makes them fundamentally dishonest. And this is what I said about the truthers, who in the face of such an obvious fraud, a staged fake event in Trump's assassination, decided to call it real and not even question all the WWE bullshit he was pulling and his fake ear, ketchup gate, and all that shit that I showed you, right? Like all that stuff. And so, this is where you just go along with the lies of one group or another, and then you tell the truth about the other side, but you exaggerate it and manipulate it to make it worse or to, add things or whatever you do. And see, that's the problem with all these people and then people in the truth community. Because even about something personal. So I believe that Sajmarg is the solution to the problem with human beings, helping them change by connecting them to the divinity within them. I believe that is the only solution, and the Sajmarg system was given specifically as an antidote to what we're seeing all around us. So that's my worldview. And, I had met this guy Dodgy. I know this guy Dodgy, Kamesh Patel, for a number of years. And he was a good practitioner of the system. And I had every reason to believe that he was doing a good job and that he would do a good job as the master of the system. And he didn't. Like, he completely failed and ultimately turned it into a cult. But I had good experiences with him, and I had faith in the previous master, who was, a person on just a different level, a realized soul, someone who had reached the pinnacle of spiritual achievement on, as a human could on planet Earth. And I had, experienced the benefits of the system. So I had mixed feelings as this guy just made one dumb thing, did one dumb thing after another, all these other things. And, you know, I was talking about the system, and people are starting to do it. People are starting to do heartfulness, you know, with Dodgy. And I was questioning these things and really there was no reference point in the literature and my belief system for what was happening. And so I had, you know, my positive opinion of him, and, you know, he was a good practitioner of the system, and I saw the work being done to make him the master of the system. He was, you know, given this spiritual work that could elevate him to that level. And it just didn't take. And again, I didn't really understand it. Like I, you know, saw the boneheaded things, and when I started talking about it, you know, I was openly questioning what's going on without really knowing, you know, what to think about it. People started to come forward from India and tell me things that were going on that I didn't even know. Some doctor contacted me saying that he was supposed to give some, you know, bullshit approval to this Brighter Mind scam where they're claiming that kids could, you know, do some exercise like rub the top of pat their heads and rub their bellies, and it would open up the ability for them to utilize their senses so they could smell colors and see with by touch and, you know, bullshit things like this, like a known scam. And so, you know, I didn't feel comfortable having this information and not sharing it with my viewers on something that was such a great system. You know, it was a real bummer on every level, but, you know, I had to figure out what was going on. And eventually I had enough information, enough things happened, was clear that this guy Dodgy had fucked the thing over. He had screwed it up, and he had turned it into you know, I would call it a cult if he wasn't such a dope. Like it's the worst cult ever because he's so stupid. And the people around him are so stupid. And, you know, he wasn't that stupid before. Like he was somebody who had, you know, he was an evolved person that just shit the bed, right? And all this was going on while I was in my own personal crisis and my own issues. I was having any number of issues, you know, in terms of I was going through a divorce and financial issues and all these things. Health issues with COVID. But, you know, the truth is the truth, and, you know, this is what I do here. And so if I was ever going to lie about something or misrepresent something, it would be that. Like I, you know, carry water for something that I know isn't what I'm saying it is. But I couldn't do that, and I don't know how other people can. Like it's just, you know, inside yourself, it doesn't matter what you're saying to other people. You know you're a lying piece of shit. You know that you're not being honest with your audience and, you know, more importantly, yourself. Like it's just nothing. It's just heavy and burdensome. Like it's a burden. You understand, like I said, everyone makes mistakes. How do you deal with those mistakes? And, you know, is it a mistake or not? That's what you have to determine. Just because something went a way that you didn't want it to go, does it mean a mistake? Or does it mean a course correction? Or does it mean that's just what happened? You know, whatever is happening is for the good. Everything that you get is from God. And accepting that, right? Not trying to force your way and impose your will and, you know, dictate the terms of your whatever's going on around you, but accepting that there's a feedback loop, and you do something, and then God shows you, you know, why you did the wrong thing, or how you could do something better, or whatever it is, right? It's part of your evolutionary process. And so you make a mistake like this, and you just own it. You know, you be honest with it. But the system's so warped and so dysfunctional, and everybody's trying to get each other, and they're all fucking adversarial, and all this stuff that's going on. Like that can never happen. Like a person can't just make an honest mistake and then redeem themselves honestly without, you know, it destroying their career or their life or whatever it is. Like all this bullshit, especially with politics and the blame game and all this stuff. And that's why our system's fucked. Like that's why, you know, I mean, it's just another indicator of the fact that there's no way back for us. You know, there's no getting back to a more reasonable, a more, you know, collective, non-divisive, you know, where we could work together. I mean, that's, you know, where people could work together on the left or the right for the good of all. You know, people want things to fail. They don't care if America fails as long as it's Trump's fault or Biden's fault, and they can seize power, and then they, you know, can go the other way. They're sabotaging the success of the other side, and thus sabotaging any chance for America to recover. But even if they work together, we're still fucked, so it doesn't matter. Like, it's just, it's over. All right, there's two epic fails, you know, the fake outrage and sanctimony from the left, you know, which is justified, but not to the extent that they're doing it. But this girl's the best here.
moving it to a classified system, an unclassified system, I mean, that is breaking the law.
And that is breaking the law, whatever. That is breaking the law.
Moving it to a classified system, an unclassified system, I mean, that is breaking the law. And I think what's really important here is that these are not just any DOD state employees. This is the entire national security apparatus on a signal thread talking about an ongoing operation while we have fighter pilots in the air. I mean, if an adversary had intercepted these text threads, they could have been killed. And that is incredibly dangerous.
Like they had this thread, like when there was like fighter pilots in the air, and like if those fighter pilots, if they found that information and was shot down, and like that could be dead, and you know, that would be really serious. I mean, if they were dead, it would be totally serious. It's unbelievably serious if they had died. All right, so the sanctimony from the Democrats here, and again, justified to some extent. No, sanctimony is never justified, but they're outraged, but it's so fake. Mark Warner's one of the worst, but this guy, he was, well, let's just listen to him.
Chairman, thank you very much for holding this hearing, and thank you for being here. Mr. Director Radcliffe, it sounds to me like your testimony today and the Secretary and the DNI's testimony is that there was nothing wrong at all with the signal thread that you were on, that it didn't include any targeting information or battle sequence. That is your testimony. That's your testimony. And I'm a little staggered that that is your view.
Okay, just to go back here to make sure we understand the problem with the Trump administration's handling of this. You know, there's damage control and minimization of things, which is something they always have to do. It's understandable, it sucks, it's dishonest, but they do it. But there's a point where your bullshit is so egregious that, you know, you look like just an out-and-out buffoon and just an absolute lying piece of shit, right? Where, like, everybody knows you're lying, and you know you're lying, and you keep on doing it. Like, it's just, it gets so, like with Joe Biden trying to argue that he wasn't senile. Like, it's stupid. Like, the American people know, everyone knows, and like, at some point, you got to stop, you got to just shut up, right? If you're not going to reverse yourself, then you got to stop talking.
View, Director Radcliffe. Does the CIA have any rules about handling of classified information? Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you, Director Radcliffe. Do you agree, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said this morning when asked by members of the press what had happened, he said this morning in Hawaii that Atlantic Editor-in-Chief Jeff Goldberg is a, quote, deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of providing hoaxes time and time again. Do you share that evaluation, the Secretary of Defense's evaluation of Jeff Goldberg as a journalist?
Senator, I didn't see those comments. I don't know Jeff Goldberg.
So do you...
Is he in your phone? Is he in your phone?
You share that view of the Secretary of Defense?
Well,
we're just chat buddies. We're just in some groups together. We don't know each other.
I don't have a view on.
Okay. Do you, assuming that he has that view, I'm curious about whether you are the CIA director. Okay, this has happened. We know it's happened. Did Jeff Goldberg somehow, did he create a hoax that allowed him to become part of this signal thread? Please answer the question. You don't insult the intelligence of the American people.
Because he cares about the American people.
Did he invite himself to the signal thread?
I don't know how he was invited, but clearly he was added.
Clearly it was. Finish your sentence, please.
Clearly he was added to the signal group. Your question is...
You don't know that the president's national security advisor invited him to join the signal thread? Everybody in America knows that. Does the CIA director not know that?
I've seen conflicting reports about who added the...
The glasses ain't working for you, bro.
Reporter to the signal messaging group.
You think that it's perfectly appropriate that there was a report.
He reminds me of Rand Paul. And just the, just not like you're performing. They're trying to have their viral moment. Because that's all, the only thing that comes out of these things are viral moments, good, bad, or ugly. Like nothing ever changes. In this case, I would be shocked if somebody resigns.
Porter added, especially one that the Secretary of Defense says is deceitful, highly discredited, a so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes over and over again. Is your testimony that it was appropriate that he was added to this signal thread?
No, of course not. And
why
Senator,
did you not
well,
call?
hold on,
you
Senator.
you're
mischaracterizing my testimony.
You answered the question. Let me ask.
Look at this guy. I mean, he's just such a tool. Like this is a senator. Like this, I mean, he's not as bad as Fetterman. Hey, I'm not as bad as Fetterman should be a slogan.
Ask you. When he was added to the thread, you're the CIA director. Why didn't you call out that he was present on the signal thread?
I don't know if you use signal messaging app.
I do. Not for classified information. Not for targeting.
Well, neither
not
do I,
for
Senator.
anything remote.
Neither do I, Senator.
Well, that's what your testimony is today.
It absolutely is not, Senator. Were you not listening at the beginning?
No.
When I said that I was using it as permitted, it is permissible to use.
I agree that's your testimony.
Yeah.
I agree that's your testimony. You asked me if I use it, and I said not for targeting, not for classified information.
And I said I don't either.
I also know Jeff Goldberg. I don't use it to
He knows Jeff. Jeff and him are buddies.
Communicate with him. But you thought it was appropriate. By the way, I think he's one of the more outstanding journalists in America.
Okay, so that's totally unnecessary. It has nothing to do with him. Like, don't make it about him. That's the wrong course of action, right? You've taken the focus. Like, these guys just don't know how to handle success. You don't need to say anything about him. Like, you can say his journalistic abilities are not at play here. It has nothing to do with him being a good journalist or a bad journalist. It's the fact that he was invited into this chat, and everybody says he's the biggest Trump hater there ever was, right? So that's what the story is. And so that's what you keep it at, because that's where you win. It's like Joe Biden when he was debating Trump and he somehow got off abortion and started talking about immigration.
But I'm shocked to find him on a thread that he's reading in the parking lot of a grocery store in Washington, D.C. And your testimony as the director of the CIA is that it's totally appropriate.
No.
Is it appropriate?
No,
that the
Director, that is not what I...
Okay,
when did I say it was?
Please.
When did I use the word appropriate?
Well, go ahead, please.
Well, I didn't.
That everybody in America.
So clearly,
there's nothing to
Senator,
see here is what your testimony is.
No, I never said that.
This is just a normal day at the CIA where we chat about this kind of stuff over signal. In fact, it's so normal that the last administration left it here for us. That's your testimony today.
That's your testimony.
No, that's
Senator.
not my testimony. That's what you said.
I didn't say any of those things that you just related, Senator.
I heard you say it. We'll let the American people decide. Let me ask you one final point. I'm out of time.
It. Well, are you going to give me a chance?
And that's where the Forbes video ends, their coverage. I didn't get the whole, just silly. It'd be great if one of these two guys just turned to the camera and said, hey, ignore all this bullshit. We're fucked. Start preparing because it's over. So I made a little video on my Gratefullness meditation channel, and it's about some things. I'm just going to put it in here. It's how your mental state in terms of what you're supposed to be thinking about when you die. Some of these other things, some of these other teachings, and I thought I'd add it here for people who are interested. I mean, it's already a long video. And then this whole thing, it's getting a little bit old. I don't know how long this scandal is going to go because nothing's going to come of it. I mean, if somebody resigns, I'll be shocked. And no one's going to be charged with any felony, even though laws were broken. And they'll just move on to something else. I don't think this will last the weekend. Today's Wednesday, March 26th. This video will be out Thursday or Friday, I guess. Anyways, we'll see. But it's got a short shelf life. But here's the video I was talking about. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Tuesday, March 25th, just completed the individual sitting for today. And I want to make a voiceover that's going to go in the Journey series. I believe the The one I'm working on is the 185th. Today is the day that this scandal is breaking with Trump, just to give some timeline and perspective about a leak in the, one of the Defense Department secretary and a bunch of his cronies invited a liberal reporter onto their messaging, and they released this stuff, the war plans for bombing the people in Yemen, the Houthis. But anyways, that's not what this is about. So I'm going to put this at the end of my next video for my, all my viewers, and then this is going to go in the Journey series, and also it's going to go in a separate video on the Gratefullness meditation channel. There are two comments that were left to me where people were quoting from the Sajmarg mission literature. And, people are finding these books online. Some of them are, there's books that you can read that are PDFs. There are also books that are out there on, Amazon or eBay and used books, things like this. And I don't know if the Sajmarg bookstore is still there. I have some information on the Gratefullness meditation channel about reading the various books and things. And I was given a couple of comments, and then I watched a little video with the third master of the system, Charger, which I found interesting, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But on the Gratefullness meditation channel, I have things to do with death, preparing for death. I was giving some sittings on that in that playlist to prepare for death. Things that you could that are specifically about that. And I'm going to continue to add to that playlist, and this is going to be part of that playlist, because one of my viewers left this comment here. And the person writes, it's the Sajmarg Educational Series Volume 1. And so this person left the title of the book and the page number. The other person didn't and wouldn't know to do so, but I want to comment about that when we get to the other book, the other comment. But it's just, I'll just comment about it here. In Sajmarg, when you're talking about anything, you're reading these books and these passages, you always want to have the exact title of the book and the page number so people can find the quote, because it might resonate with them and they want to read maybe some of the other parts of it, some of the other things that went along with it. So it's always good to, to be more like, to document these things. So this is, I'm not sure, the Sajmarg Educational Series, I can't remember what that one's about. I don't have a picture of that book in my mind, but, I've read all these books. So, okay, so I just looked it up. So there's two books. One's called Meditation, one's called Cleaning. I think there might have been a third book, I'm not sure. But these were two books with, this guy Ferdinand took all the quotes that were available, I think by all three of the masters. This is pre-Dodgy. And that had to do with meditation, and another one that had to do with the cleaning process. And so that you could learn about those two specific things. And so I read those books a long time ago, but, and this quote might be something I'm familiar with. I mean, I've heard this quote before from another location, because these are from talks and other things. But Master Chargy said, at death, the mind should be made a complete blank. No thoughts must be allowed to come into it, not even of gods or anything like that. It must be made completely blank so that at death, it can merge with the source where the condition is that of nothingness. And I tell you, for the Abhyasis, aspirants, one who practices yoga in order to achieve union with God, so that's in parentheses, of our Santha, spiritual tradition, organization, or group. The word Santha, S-A-N-S-T-H-A, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I've heard it before, but this is very easy, because this is what they are taught to do every time they sit in meditation. To use this becomes second nature. When we sit in meditation, the mind becomes thoughtless. So what we are experiencing, to put it one way, is a condition somewhat like that at death. You call it a condition of death in life, if you like. So when the time comes, we automatically get into this state of mind, and there is no impediment, even at the last moment. And I guess this quote is from Babaji, the second master of the system, pages 138 and 139. So I can say after years of doing this practice, thoughtlessness isn't the goal of the meditation, but you get into thoughtless states. And there's various points you can meditate on, which will bring to a thoughtless state. There's point B in the heart region. There's point 1 and there's point A and B. In that point 1, the first point on the left side of the bottom of the chest area. And I've showed you the yatra picture and various talks and things. And when you meditate on point B, it brings you to a thoughtless state. But just the meditation itself, and I hadn't tried this in maybe ever, but maybe 5 years ago, I just sat there and I was like, I wonder if I could just not think about anything and be in a thoughtless state. And I was able to achieve it fairly easily because of just doing this meditation for years. And the reason why a person would be in a thoughtless state when they die is you wouldn't want to attach to anything. Like you want to go to wherever, the highest level of your possible highest level of your approach to God, the closest you could get to God. And so having a thoughtless state and just being completely open to where your soul goes when it leaves the body. And I don't want to make it sound like it's some sort of a traveling, something where you go from New York to Los Angeles or something, right? It's not like that. It's, you're going through a different layers of consciousness. And thoughtlessness is the way to do it, right? So any sort of attachment, anything that you think about, anything that's, that would impede that process, right? That's why they burn the bodies in India. And, people are told you're supposed to grieve for a little bit of time. You have to. That's a natural process. It's what you're supposed to do anyway, right? You grieve for your loved ones, but then you have to let them go. And the reason they burn the bodies is sometimes a soul will hang around the body, even though the body's dead. If there's unfinished business, if they died sort of a quick death, there's some maybe surprise, shock or surprise in their death process. And they'll hang around their body, and so if you burn their body, they go somewhere else, right? Their soul will just go to where it's supposed to go. Plus, if you're thinking about them, you keep on pulling the soul back to you, right? Because the soul's connected to you. You have some connection through love with your loved ones, and so at some point you have to just let the soul go. It needs to go to where it has to return, and these things, right? When this medium showed up, this French woman who does the Whispers of the Brighter World messages, Master Charji received messages from his wife who had been dead since 1995. He started receiving these messages, I think, in the early 1999, early 2000s. And then some messages from his mom who died when he was 5. And these messages were given, and then there was, like this idea that their soul wanted to return to where where it wouldn't have access to earth and earthly consciousness, right? These souls wanted to move on to something else. And so, this is a good way to think about it. But, it's, again, I'm putting this in the playlist about, preparing for death and these things, which is what this meditation ultimately does is it connects you with the place you're going, the etheric worlds, where you're going, wherever you're going to go when you die. You're preparing for that transition. And, it's something that, we all should be doing because death is inevitable. It's one of the great things about the Sajmark system because you have an earthly life and you have a spiritual life, and the life of your spirit it gets more enhanced as you get older and closer to death. And, attending to your spiritual life and meditating and connecting to this, other part of your existence, your non-material part of your existence, helps you transition when you die, right? So this is important stuff, but people don't want to think about their death, so there's that reason. So the other person left a comment, and again, the person didn't know this, but whenever you leave a comment, you have to, like I said, this person said, I'm currently reading the Principles of Sajmark by Charji. So I think there's some nice books that they printed, like a hardbound copy of the Principles of Sajmark. And then I had some of the old ones that they printed in India, and the pages would just rip out. You had to glue the pages back in because they were poorly bound. They were cheap books. But I think there was 15 or 20 of the Principles of Sajmark. So Chargy gave lots of talks, similar to what I mean, not similar to, but, this kind of thing that I do on YouTube is what Chargy used to do at gatherings. But his was, about the Sajmark system. And the talks he gave in India were published in a series of books called The Principles of Sajmark. And I think the book this person has, there's 3 volumes in it, volume 1, 2, and 3. And the talks that he gave in Europe and in America were entitled Heart to Heart. And so there was, I think, 20 of those books that were published. Eventually, he does some of these talks made it onto DVDs and things like that. And these things are floating around. I mean, some people have some of them, and some of them end up on eBay and things like this. So he says, I'm currently reading The Principles of Sajmark by Chargy, and in the chapter Reality Unveiled, he writes about newcomers of the Sajmark receiving experiences deliberately granted by the master to bring connection into the mind that there is something here. This alludes to what Paul was saying about receiving God's help. As a 2 and a bit year newbie myself, I definitely vouch for this. The more I work for God, the more God works for me. Thanks, Paul. Have a blessed day, all. I had this tremendous, probably maybe my biggest experience in my first initial sittings. And it was probably the only reason I stayed with Sajmark's system, because I didn't like to meditate. And, I've come to really need it and, just do it automatically. But, before I started Sajmark, I tried it and didn't like it. And so I wasn't really interested in meditation, but I felt some energy. I was given this sort of a pamphlet, some printout, like some Xerox copy of a talk by this guy Chargy. And I read it, and I felt some vibrations in the heart, and it said something about the heart. And I never thought about my heart, either my physical heart or my etheric heart. But I tried the meditation, and I had these profound experiences. And it really sold me on the system. That was all I needed. I knew there was something special here because it was just, these mind-blowing experiences. But, now I don't know, I don't have those kind of experiences because the meditation itself is, the condition that's there is much more subtle. And, the experiences don't need to be there because I'm not, they're not necessary. And, the system itself isn't about experiences. It's about connecting to God, which is subtle. And so, people who don't feel something big happening, it doesn't need, that's not what's supposed to be happening. But if you get those experiences, they convince you, and that's the good thing about it. But eventually you forget about the experience because you can't remember, you can't re-experience the experience. You can remember how great it was and how profound it was. But it's not something that you necessarily can take with you and re-experience again later on. So it's the day-to-day practice and meditation that you feel connected to God in a very subtle way, and how it helps cope with stress and move forward. And there's things that you're changing in you for the better that you can recognize as progress. And so that was what makes the system great, in that way. But, people need reasons to do something, and especially Americans and people, Europeans that, big experiences are almost mandatory for them to stick with something. So, just a few more things to say. I want to comment on this talk I was listening to. I got about halfway through it. I'm going to listen to the rest of it when I'm done with this when I'm making dinner. So, the Sajmark system, there was 6 preceptors, all American, not Indian people, in my area. Most of the preceptors were Indian. They were, mostly Indian citizens who were working in America, and they grew up in America. They grew up in India. And so they're very, they were, they're Indian traditionally, and they had a different understanding about, the master-disciple relationship, which is a big thing in India, and they came from a different religion and a different culture. And, I would go to these different preceptors and get sittings and we'd talk about Sajmark with them. And then we'd have these gatherings. Chargy would come to America, and there would be these big gatherings in the ashram. There's, I think around 1,000 people that used to go to them. And I made friends and people who I, were like me, and and then going to India and seeing people from all over the world. Some of them old-time people, people who are, mentioned in books and, had been around for big events in the system and things like this. And they all had their different perspective and different ways of relating to the system. And some of them had issues, like some of the American people had issues with the cultural differences. And, Chargy talks about some of the cultural attitudes towards sex and other things. I'll show you I'll make a screenshot of the talk here in a second. But anyways, there was a whole smorgasbord of different personalities and different people. And I learned a lot from their practice and their struggles and they sometimes struggle with some of the teachings or some of the rules or whatever it might be, right? Some of these different cultural aspects of this system. And that's unfortunately doesn't exist. And so people here just have me. And that certainly isn't really a great thing. People are just hearing about Sajmark from me and my experiences. People listen to the Journey series and the sittings that are given and, these other things. And they can find some of these books. And I'm glad people are finding the books and, having their own experiences, reading the books, doing the practice and, relating to it that way. Because it's just not, it's not supposed to be only one person, especially when that person isn't the master. It'd be one thing if there was, one of the masters was still alive. We had a master and someone who had mastered themselves and was the embodiment of the practical embodiment, the experiential embodiment of the practice, where they had reached this goal of God realization, the mergence with the divine, and they emanated out of they used to emanate this energy. When you were around them, it was like their presence and the energy that they were exuding and the way they lived, and you could observe them and be around them, and there's it's just not there, and it's it's unfortunately a sucky thing because this guy Dodgy shit the bed. He crapped out when he had the potential to be one of these people, and it's said over and over again the master system is kind of imperative, is essential to the system, and that sucks. But right now the meditation's still working, the transmission's still flowing. And there's, good things about it. And people are having this experience, the gratefulness meditation we do. But, it's limited. And, people have to do more. And they have to figure things out on their own to some extent, right? They have to really connect with the master within. And because there isn't much of a support system and organization. There's the website, the YouTube channel that I've made. And there's the teachings and all the things that I can, that I can say personally and the works and the writings that are there. And, but it's a limited thing. It's unfortunate. I went and made dinner, and I went for a walk with my dog, and I listened to the rest of the Chargy talk. It's an epic talk. The title of the talk is, here, let me give it to the website there. Reverend Chargy Talk, Duty and Responsibility, 2007, July. He, the Hook, and I. SRMC, and it's from Sajmark, S-A, they have the picture there. That's how you spell it. And Sajmark YouTube channel, which is the original channel, then Heartfulness took over. Sajmark was the original name, and then Dodgy thought up this Heartfulness scam, and it's a separate organization, and he's, according to people that are anti-Dodgy, telling me that he is glomming all the properties and this was a collective Sajmark which belonged to, everybody in a sense. And he personally owns the Heartfulness thing, right? So, real, piece of shit move on his part. There's like $1 billion in assets. So I was listening to this talk, I was cutting my hair, I was doing a bunch of things. And he told a story, Chargy. Well, first, the Hook, and I talks were these sort of expensive talks, and maybe it was like $100-something, and we couldn't buy it at the time, whatever it was released. And they were talks that Chargy was giving, very informal talks about his time with Babaji, his master, the second master of the system, who smoked a hookah. Babaji barely ate, and he had a bad toothache, and someone said if you smoke tobacco, it helps with the pain. So he's got in the habit of smoking. And Lology, the first master of the system, said to him, why are you smoking? He said, well, I have the toothache. He said, well, if you're going to smoke, use the hookah. It's better, it purifies the smoke, it's better for you. And Babaji had this hookah that they used to pack with charcoal and with tobacco and with jaggery. And he would sit around in his courtyard and he would talk to people, visitors from all over the world. And, there was this sound of the hookah, and, he would smoke the hookah and he would, say these, profound things to them and do spiritual work on them. And Charji gave these informal talks, and I thought I had heard them. I probably heard this one before. I had listened to all of them. At some point, I had the book. They put it in a book format at some point. But he was telling this story about how when he was, I guess in his, I can't remember what his age was, but he was just, he was in college years. And he went to Italy. He traveled in Europe, and, he lived in India, but he traveled in Europe. And he got off the, wherever it is, a plane or wherever he got there. He was taking a bus to the hotel, and some guy in a Porsche wanted to give him a ride, and he said no, he didn't trust the guy, and said he would just go and take the bus. And the guy ends up stopping the bus and asks him again if he wants to, go with him. And he says no, and then Charji gets to the hotel, and the guy's trying to cancel his reservation at the hotel. I think Charji was with some other people, some other young men or whatever. And they're like, and Charji's like, get out of here, I'm going to call the cops, right? What are you doing? And later he found out the guy was a homosexual that was predatory. And, obvious stuff, whatever. And it stunned him because he never, experienced anything like this in India. And, it sort of made him jaded against the European cultures. And, he said even now there was some of this, I don't want to call it prejudice, but it still lingered, which I thought was kind of interesting. Now, I hadn't heard that particular talk or story before. Some of the stories he tells I'd heard before. But it's an excellent talk in terms of duty and, your responsibilities and duty, which he says, at some point, those things disappear and it's just pure devotion and service to God, right? And as Babaji put it, service to his master. And it's an excellent talk. There's people who do the Sajmark system who never did the meditation. They wouldn't get these sittings. They wouldn't go to satsang, which is group meditation. They wouldn't get individual sittings. They wouldn't do their personal practice, but they love the master, and they spend as much time with him as possible, in the atmosphere, the environment, or they would just go to meditation when Charji was giving the sittings or something. The other people who really were devotional and loved to do the work, and they volunteered for lots of things and did a lot of work. Other people were really into the literature and the intellectual aspect of the system. They all had their preferences. This is why I was talking about earlier, that when you just have me as the lone person who does the system, it kind of sucks. And there's lots of great people, like saintly people and really interesting people from all over the world that do the meditation. People who are higher developed souls. And it's unfortunately that wealth has been lost because of this, this cult thing that Daji's formed. And it's a real bummer. And, especially now when everything's going to crap. I also just listened to I did a little extra clip of Trump and his frickin', his non-responsibility for classified documents, right? And just another, way America's, we're going straight to the, destruction aspect of our system. And, which is predicted and worked on and, made happen by the divine forces behind the Sajmark system. So, this is all something I'm aware of, but, it's going to be difficult for all of us to transition from whatever our life is now to a life without all the privileges and things that we have. But anyways, I was thinking about all these things that I myself, in terms of my own spiritual practice, my own duty and devotion to God. He talks about a dog, how dogs are so devotional at the end of the talk. But, why I do the things I do. Like, it's sort of automatic at this point. I don't even think about it, like in terms of doing whatever I do with the Gratefullness meditation and doing these videos and talking about the Sajmark system and, whatever my abilities and role is here. But, I'm also quite jaded and resistant to getting overwhelmed by, people. and they're bullshit because of what's happened already, things I experienced, being worn out. I mean, even from my family situation, my kids and all that, and just, the disappointment of all of it. I mean, even if it isn't disappointing, like I take it as something that's been good for me and, for my spiritual well-being, I'm well aware that people will let you down. And so, I've been hesitant to, there's just so much I'm willing to commit to. Somebody asked me for personal sittings, but everything that I could offer in a long distance sitting is there in the Gratefullness Meditation YouTube channel. There was a couple, I guess, who aren't able to feel the transmission, and I don't know what to do about that, but it's, if you do it enough and maybe pray about it, pray and find some way. I don't know what it is. I should make a separate video about this, way to become more sensitive. I've added some of the sensitivity suggestions. Maybe I could do a sitting where people will meditate on that and, pray about that, and as well put that in a separate playlist, do those occasionally. And I could read the preceptor book about that. And that's something that's been on my mind to do. I just have to get the time. But anyways, I was thinking about all these things and my own personal contribution and why I do what I do. And, it's just, after a while, you don't even think about motivation. Like, I don't need, there's a point where I wanted to maybe prove myself, or, when I was younger, or different things, these types of things. But at some point, it just becomes, you do it because you're supposed to. Like, it's just, there's no thought of duty. There's no thought of responsibility. As you get older, you're just doing what you're supposed to do because it's what you're supposed to do, right? And it's, kind of a nice place to be in. And considering, it's different for each person because of the, it's hard to really relate to the master-disciple relationship in America. And, what it means, and, how important it is, and, how, and people don't want to get into some sort of cult situation, and they don't want to give up their personal sovereignty and their ability to, think they're going to be ordered around or be, enslaved in some way, like a master-slave relationship, which the connotation for Europe and America is that it's a master-slave relationship. But it's, a master and somebody who's master themselves, and you are working to achieve the achievements that they've personally achieved, right? You're working to accomplish what they've accomplished, and that's, binding yourself to a guide in a sense, and having them help you make it up the mountain, the spiritual mountain. But anyways, these are just some thoughts about the thing. I can hear my dogs bark. I think my wife just got home, so I'm going to go have dinner and stuff. Anyways, kind of interesting. I'm glad, that I listened to that talk, and, there's a lot of good stuff in that Sajmark channel. And, maybe someday there'll be some sort of community and people will, read the books and do the stuff, and, there'll be different ways of perceiving, how you relate to this practice, and not just one person. I mean, that's just really unfortunate. And it kind of sucks that the person's me, for you guys, but, it's the way it is. And, I'm so focused on the truther stuff. The other people, there's very few real truthers or even partial truthers in Sajmark, because they're, I wouldn't say they're sheeple, but they're not really into the stuff, they're, especially the culture, the Indian culture. The masters were in their own way, but, not like we are, because, everything was from God, so they didn't have this sense of like, there's good and evil, but they're not thinking about it in some way like we do, right? It's just, there's good and evil, and they're good and evil are there for a reason. But anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.